The void screamed, not with sound, but with the shudder of ruptured reality. Across the corpse light of the galaxy, where dead suns hung in silence, the warp convulsed like a wounded god. Colors that no mortal eye could name bled into existence and died again, birthing a storm that tore through the immaterium like a living thought gone mad. Amidst that chaos drifted a single relic of another universe, a shattered vessel of alien make. Its hull bore the sigils of a dead cosmos, fragments of gold and violet plating twisted into the geometry of ruin. The ship's engines were long extinguished, yet it moved still, drawn by the invisible tides of madness that ruled the Eye of Terror. Within its sundered heart, a single pulse of life remained. Thanos of Titan, the mad Titan, the philosopher of death, the butcher of worlds, stirred. For the first time in what felt like eternity, his body ached. His lungs burned with the taste of atmosphere that wasn't his own. His mind, sharper than any blade, tried to orient itself, but the rules here were wrong. Gravity whispered. Time stuttered. The universe felt alive and hostile. He rose slowly, his massive frame cracking the frozen crystal that had formed over the chamber floor. His armor was fractured. The gauntlet upon his left hand hung open, its sockets empty. No stones. No power. Only the faint echo of purpose. Where am I? His voice rolled like thunder across the chamber. Through the viewport, the warp danced, a sea of bleeding stars, writhing faces, and shifting geometries. It was not space. It was not void. It was hunger. Thanos gazed into it, unblinking. He had peered into black holes, into dying suns, into death herself, but never had he seen reality bend with such sentience. This was not a place. This was a will. Far beyond his drifting wreck, the broken corpse of Cadia hung like a scar upon the stars. The planet, shattered by the forces of chaos centuries ago, still bled debris and ghosts into the void. Ships of the Imperium patrolled its graveyard, and even now, the Eye of Terror yawned wide behind it, a wound in the galaxy that would never close. And from that wound, new lightning was born, violent, colorless, silent. The warp whispered names that were not his. Abaddon, Sench, Korn, the Emperor. Words he could not know, yet somehow understood, as though the void itself were translating them directly into the soul. He reached for his armor's control nodes, but the systems were dead. The computer core flickered once, showing the remains of his last log entry. Reality collapse, energy surge beyond comprehension, stones unresponsive, teleportation anomaly detected. He grunted softly. So, I am unmade, yet not undone. The ship groaned. Structural integrity was failing. Through the fractured viewport, Thanos saw a storm front of black flame approach, not fire as he knew it, but something that devoured light itself. He could feel it pulling at his consciousness, whispering promises, tasting his fear. He clenched his fists. I do not fear you, he growled to the void. I have spoken with gods, and killed them. But the warp did not answer in words. Instead, left 1,000 voices, his own among them, overlapping until meaning itself fractured. He pressed the emergency release, stepping through the broken hatch into the silence of the void. His armor's environmental seals flickered to life for a moment, a final courtesy of dying technology. He pushed off from the ruined ship, drifting toward the nearest debris field, each motion calm and deliberate, as though even now he controlled the storm. Behind him, his ship was consumed. Ahead, the Eye of Terror opened wider, and something watched him back. In the distance, Imperial auger arrays screamed warnings across the fleet in orbit around Cadia's corpse. Unregistered anomaly. Non-Imperial craft. Power readings. Impossible. Aboard the battleship Vigilant Mercy, Inquisitor Halbrecht stood over the holographic display, his augmetic eye flickering crimson. "Contact," he barked. "Unknown," came the Vox officer's reply. "No warp signature. No life signs. Wait, correction. One reading. Massive bioelectric output." Halbrecht leaned closer. The sensor projection resolved into the shape of a humanoid, enormous, armored, walking through the void unaided. "Saints preserve us," the officer whispered. "Open a channel," Halbrecht ordered. "Sir, there's no..." "Do it." Static filled the bridge. Then, a voice. Deep, resonant, utterly calm. "This galaxy screams. Tell me, who rules it?" Every soul aboard the bridge felt their blood run cold. The Vox went dead. Thanos landed upon a fragment of Cadia's remains, a jagged continent of broken stone and half-buried fortresses drifting through vacuum. Around him, the void burned. Above him, the warp pulsed like a heartbeat. He knelt briefly, pressing one gauntlet hand to the ground. "A world that fought to the last," he murmured, "and still lost. Perhaps here I will find understanding." The wind, or something like it, moved across the ruins. In it, faint whispers coiled around his mind. "Balance is a lie here, Titan. There is only war." Thanos looked up, and for the first time in millennia, he smiled, not with arrogance, but with curiosity. "Then I will teach this universe the meaning of balance." The warp flashed once, as if laughing, and somewhere, deep within the eye of terror, something answered his arrival. A shadow stirred, a name forgotten by gods themselves. The galaxy would never be the same again. The storm spat him out like a curse. One moment, Thanos drifted amid the endless glow of the warp. The next, gravity seized him, dragging his colossal form down through the upper atmosphere of a dying world. Fire streaked across his armor as he fell, the air around him screaming. He struck the surface like a meteor, carving a crater into the ashen soil. When the dust cleared, the Titan rose. He found himself standing in the ruins of a world already dead in spirit, if not in form. The horizon burned crimson, a sun strangled by pollution and war smoke. The air was thick with the scent of promethium, oil, and blood. The sky thundered not with weather, but with war. Artillery shells screamed overhead. Bolter fire chattered from the trenches. Every hill was crowned with fortifications. Every valley was a grave. He stood between two armies, both human, neither sane. On one side, the Astra Militarum, the Emperor's Guard, their faith etched into armor plates, their banners bearing the double-headed eagle. On the other, Chaos, a horde of corrupted flesh and armor, chanting praises to gods that fed on madness. To Thanos, both looked the same. They fought with the same desperation. They died with the same screams. He began to walk. Each step sank into the mud, a mixture of soil and blood centuries thick. Las fire flashed past him, striking his armor harmlessly. Soldiers shouted. Some fired. Some dropped to their knees and prayed. None understood what they were seeing. A lone guardsman, face caked in ash, turned toward him, trembling. In the Emperor's name, what are you?" Thanos regarded the man silently. The soldier's faith burned bright, a tiny flame in an endless night, but even that light flickered beneath the weight of fear. "You fight," Thanos said at last, his voice echoing like rolling thunder. "But you do not know why." The guardsman stared, speechless. Behind him, Chaos Marines roared a battle cry and charged, their mutated armor glistening with ichor. One raised a chain axe, bellowing the name of his god. Thanos turned slightly, not in fear, but in idle curiosity. As the demon-possessed warrior swung, the Titan caught the axe mid-swing with one hand. The weapon's teeth shrieked against his palm, sparks flaring like tiny suns. Then, silence. He tightened his grip. Metal crumpled. The chain axe shattered. With his other hand, Thanos struck once. The Chaos Marine ceased to exist, reduced to fragments of armor and vaporized gore. The guardsman stumbled back, awe and terror fighting for control in his eyes. "You killed a space marine." "A soldier," Thanos corrected calmly. "Nothing more." He looked around, at the fire, the screams, the endless war. The ground itself seemed alive, twitching with the corpses of the fallen as if the planet refused to let them rest. He realized then, there was no balance here. Only motion, endless, senseless motion. A tank shell exploded nearby. The shockwave staggered him, though not from power, but from disgust. He had seen war across galaxies, but never one that celebrated its own futility. He raised his gaze to the burning heavens. "Is this what passes for order in this universe?" he murmured. Above, a chaos dropship descended, its hull made from fused bone and metal, engines shrieking like tortured souls. Bolter fire poured from its sides. Thanos sighed. He reached down, tore a slab of broken plating from the ground, and hurled it. The projectile, propelled by strength beyond calculation, struck the dropship mid-descent. The craft detonated instantly, showering debris across both armies. The battlefield froze. Thousands of eyes turned toward him, imperial and heretic alike. "Who is that?" someone screamed over the vox. "A demon? A god? A Xeno? Fire on him!" Bolter shells rained from both sides. Explosions thundered across the plain. Dust swallowed him whole. When the smoke cleared, he was still standing, unscathed, unmoved. He brushed ash from his shoulder and began walking again, the battlefield parting before him like a tide before a mountain. Far away, aboard the Imperial command post, Inquisitor Halbrecht watched through pict feeds as the colossal figure advanced. Each new image made the data spirits shriek in static. Machine spirits refused to render the Titan clearly, as though his presence insulted reality itself. Magnify. Center image. Resolution collapsing, my lord. What in the Emperor's name is he doing? On screen, Thanos stopped amid the corpses of both sides. He raised one hand, palm open. All across the battlefield, weapons ceased firing. Soldiers froze. For a moment, one impossible, beautiful moment, silence fell over the world. The smoke parted, and Thanos spoke. "I see death without purpose. I see faith without wisdom. I see war without end." His words carried not through air, but through the minds of all who heard. The sound was both whisper and thunder, undeniable. In my universe, I sought balance. I failed. In this one, I see no balance to restore, because there is nothing left to measure. He closed his hands slowly, and the air itself seemed to respond. Bolts of energy arced between the corpses, crackling through weapons and banners alike. Every system, imperial or heretic, faltered, flickered, died. "Your gods are loud," he continued. "Your emperor is silent. Perhaps both are afraid." Inquisitor Halbrecht clenched his jaw. "By the throne, he speaks like a prophet." "He's no prophet," the Vox operator whispered. "He's something else." Halbrecht turned to his officers. "Send coordinates to orbit. Full exterminative strike if he moves toward our lines." But Thanos did not advance. Instead, he knelt there, in the mud and blood of 1,000 forgotten wars, and pressed his hand to the ground. The earth trembled. For a moment, the warp bled through, showing him visions. Planets burning. A golden throne humming with psychic agony. Demons feeding on the souls of dying billions. He saw patterns, endless war, endless faith, endless sacrifice, all orbiting a single truth: this universe feeds on imbalance. He understood then why the warp felt familiar. It was the reflection of every soul's chaos, multiplied by eternity. He opened his eyes, his voice low. "So, this is the price of immortality." A sudden shriek of corrupted energy tore across the field. From the northern ridge, a chaos sorcerer rose into the air, his body alight with warp fire, his laughter echoing through the ruins. "You do not belong here, foreign god," the sorcerer cried. "The eye welcomes none but its chosen." Thanos looked up, unamused. "Then it will learn new definitions of chosen." The sorcerer unleashed his spell, a spear of warp lightning, shrieking through dimensions. It struck Thanos squarely. For a second, the Titan's armor glowed white-hot. Then he raised his hand. The energy dispersed. Thanos clenched his fist, and the sorcerer ceased to exist. His body collapsed inward, erased, as though the universe itself denied his existence. Silence returned. When the dust settled, Thanos turned his gaze upward. Above the dying battlefield, the eye of terror shimmered faintly, like a living wound watching its own infection spread. "You wanted chaos," he said to the void. "You have it." He stepped forward, away from the battlefield, away from the armies that now stared at him in stunned reverence and horror. "Now, I will find the ones who rule this madness." Behind him, thousands of soldiers dropped to their knees, some in prayer, some in fear, none understanding that they had just witnessed a god who did not want to be worshipped. And somewhere beyond sight, in the heart of the warp, something ancient stirred, amused. The first ripple of destiny had begun. The smoke never cleared on this world. It simply shifted, like a living thing, crawling over the corpses of the fallen, seeking new breath. When Thanos emerged again from the haze, the battlefield was unrecognizable, a graveyard of armor and faith. He stood at its center, still as a monument. Ash clung to his armor like mourning cloth. Around him, the silence after slaughter rang louder than war ever had. But silence, in this galaxy, never lasted long. From the ridges beyond, floodlights ignited, brilliant white beams cutting through the smoke. The emblem of the Aquila burned across their transports. Imperial Guard survivors. Dozens of Lehman Russ tanks, battered but operational, rolled into formation. Their commander's voice thundered across the Vox. "Identify yourself. By the throne, stand down. You are within Imperial territory." Thanos said nothing. He had no interest in banners or oaths. The Imperium's insignia meant nothing to him. Another symbol, another justification for war. Through their scopes, the soldiers saw only a giant in strange purple-gold armor, walking amidst chaos ruins without harm. To them, the conclusion was inevitable. "It's one of them," someone whispered. "A demon. A new champion of the ruinous powers." All batteries opened fire. The sky exploded. Shells screamed down like rain. Plasma bolts traced arcs of blue fire. Bolter rounds detonated against the ground, filling the air with vaporized mud and blood. Through it all, Thanos walked. Each impact staggered mountains, but he moved with the indifference of a god crossing a stream. A missile struck his chest, detonated, and vanished into the smoke. When it cleared, he was still walking, armor cracked, eyes burning. His voice rose over the storm, deep and calm. "You mistake me for one of your gods. That is your first mistake." He raised his hand. The ground beneath the first tank buckled, twisted, and folded inward as if reality itself had been pulled taut. The vehicle vanished into its own shadow, crushed beyond matter. Another fired. He flicked his wrist. The projectile reversed midair, streaking back toward its source. It hit. Silence followed. Within seconds, half the company was gone. On the Imperial Vox, panic spread like contagion. Target is, Emperor forgive us. Target is shrugging off plasma fire. Pull back. All units pull back. Inquisitorial command, we require immediate sanction. Halbrecht's voice answered through static. Do not retreat. Hold your positions. I want him contained. But even as he spoke, new icons flared on his Auspex display, inbound from the opposite vector. Warp signatures. Demon engines. The Chaos forces were returning, drawn by the same unnatural energy that now radiated from the Titan. Within minutes, the horizon bloomed red again. Warp portals tore open like bleeding wounds. From them surged abominations of metal and flesh, twisted tanks, shrieking beasts, heretic marines chanting praises to their dark gods. The Iron Seraphs, a warband devoted to Khorne, had arrived. Their leader, a hulking figure encased in brass armor, raised his axe toward Thanos. New god of war, he bellowed, his voice layered with demonic echoes. The Blood Lord welcomes you. Claim this world in his name, and we shall drink together from its veins. Thanos turned toward the speaker. Behind him, the Imperial Guard reloaded their weapons. Before him, the Chaos Horde howled for blood. Two armies. Two sides of the same delusion. He understood, then, why this galaxy could never know peace. Both believed themselves righteous. Both worshipped death under different names. I serve no god, Thanos said quietly, and I share wine with none. The Iron Seraphs charged. The guard opened fire, and Thanos moved. His steps blurred into shockwaves. He crossed the space between armies in seconds, his fist tearing through the first Chaos Marine's torso like parchment. Another swung at him. Thanos caught the chain axe mid-swing and crushed it into molten fragments. He tore a demon engine from the ground, a towering fusion of machine and flesh, and hurled it into a squad of guard tanks. Metal screamed. Explosions rippled outward. In moments, the battlefield had become a storm of annihilation. Imperial and heretic alike died the same way, instantly, silently, without understanding. To Thanos, they were insects fighting over ashes. To them, he was the apocalypse wearing a face. Above the chaos, the Iron Seraph champion roared, summoning warp flame through his axe. You could have ruled beside me, Titan. You could have served eternal war. Thanos caught the flaming axe with one hand. His other hand pressed against the warrior's chest. Eternity, he said softly, is the punishment of fools. He pushed. Reality folded. The champion imploded, armor, soul, and fire consumed in a single burst of violet light. When the smoke cleared again, nothing moved. Thousands lay dead. The air was thick with ash and static. Tanks smoldered, demon engines hissed in their death throes, and the only figure left standing was Thanos. He looked around, at the chaos he had unleashed, and frowned. There was no satisfaction, no triumph, only the echo of futility. So this is what power means here, he muttered. Not order, not peace, only noise. He turned his gaze to the heavens. The clouds above him rippled with psychic distortion, like an eye watching from beyond. Are you watching, Emperor? He asked the sky. Do you see the price of your balance? The wind carried no answer, only the stench of burning faith. A broken Vox unit crackled near his feet. Through it, a faint voice whispered, weak, defiant, human. Whoever you are, the Emperor protects, always. Thanos looked down at the device, at the trembling soldier hidden behind the wreckage. He approached slowly, kneeling before the man. The guardsman aimed his last pistol, his hands shaking. You're no man, he stammered. No demon. Then what are you? For a long moment, Thanos said nothing. Then he replied, a whisper heavy with finality. I am consequence. He stood again, towering above the fallen, and walked away, leaving the soldier to wonder whether he had just spoken with a god or something far worse. From orbit, Inquisitor Halbrecht watched the aftermath through blurred pict feeds. The surface burned. No clear readings. No survivors confirmed. He felt his throat tighten as he issued the only order he could. Seal the system. No ships in, no ships out. Until we understand what he is. He turned away from the screen, and for the first time in his long service, whispered a prayer not for salvation, but for comprehension. Emperor, guide us, because if this creature is not of chaos, then perhaps chaos itself will kneel before him. And down below, amid the fire and ruin, Thanos walked alone through the Valley of Death, the beginning of a myth the Imperium would never forget. Not the champion of chaos. Not the Emperor's wrath. Something older. Something inevitable. The universe had gained a new variable, and even the warp trembled to calculate it. The chamber was silent except for the hum of machinery and the distant throb of void engines. Beyond the armored viewports, the black gulf of space hung motionless, broken only by the distant shimmer of Cadia's debris field. Inside, the air smelled of incense, oil, and ozone, the holy mixture of 1,000 battle saints and 1,000,000 machines. Inquisitor Halbrecht stood at the center of it all, a man carved from iron will and sleepless nights. His augmetic eye pulsed crimson as it scanned the banks of hollow feeds surrounding him. Every screen showed the same thing, a lone, towering figure striding through the ruin of war. Run it again, Halbrecht ordered. His voice was calm, but beneath it, unease crept like rust. The servitor obeyed, replaying the data capture from orbit. The image flickered, static, distortion, but the outline remained unmistakable. A giant in fractured purple and gold armor, surrounded by dead Imperial and heretic alike. Machine spirits wailed softly as they tried to render his features. Data stacks failed to identify the armor, species, or energy profile. The Vox feed carried one phrase, recorded through a dying soldier's helmet cam, that repeated endlessly on the loop. I am consequence. Halbrecht clasped his hands behind his back. The words echoed in his mind like prophecy. Around him, a small circle of officers and adepts waited for orders. A tech priest intoned a low binary prayer to calm the machine spirits of the pict feeds. An astropath, pale and trembling, pressed a blood-streaked hand against her temple. My lord, she whispered, the warp reacts to his presence. It recoils, as if something alien intrudes upon its nature. Halbrecht turned sharply. The warp recoils? Impossible. I speak truth, lord. I tried to touch his mind across the veil. It was empty, yet vast. A void that devoured thought. Even the Emperor's light faltered. Halbrecht's jaw tightened. He turned back to the screens, watching as the Titan knelt amid the wreckage of the battlefield. You see why this cannot stand, he said finally. Something that makes even demons hesitate, something that silences faith. That is not miracle, it is heresy given form. He walked toward the central hololith. With a gesture, he enlarged the image of Thanos, his voice shifting from measured observation to cold command. No known Xenos classification. Power levels surpass any recorded psyker. No warp signature, no trace of mutation. Yet it destroys with thought and moves through the warp untainted. The tech priest clicked in agitation. My lord, the readings are inconsistent. His energy output shifts. It is as though reality itself bends around him to remain stable. A living anomaly. Then we treat him as one, Halbrecht said. Not as man or monster, but as contamination. He looked over his retinue, meeting each gaze with the certainty of doctrine. By authority of the Ordo Xenos and the Ordo Hereticus, I declare this entity exterminatus threat. Effective immediately, all Imperial assets are to engage on sight. A murmur rippled through the officers. My lord, one of them ventured, if this being truly wields that kind of power, open conflict could provoke the attention of the Chaos Gods themselves. Halbrecht's eyes flashed. And if we do nothing, it will replace them. He turned to the astropath. Transmit my report to Terra. Priority cipher, Inquisitorial Channel 79 Omega. The woman hesitated. My lord, to invoke that channel is to reach directly into the Astronomicon. The Emperor's will may be tested. Then let him judge this act righteous. The astropath swallowed hard and began the ritual. Her lips moved silently as psychic light flared around her. Candles guttered in the pressure wave. When she screamed, it was not from pain but from the weight of what she saw. He sees it, she gasped. The Emperor. He sees the intruder. The lights dimmed. Every console flickered. The entire ship shuddered as if brushed by an unseen hand. Then, stillness. The astropath collapsed, breathing shallowly. He is watching, Lord, she whispered, but he does not act. Halbrecht stood in silence for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, heavy with dread. Then he waits for us to act. He turned to his aide. What is the nearest force capable of planetary strike? Astartes detachment from the Angel's Penitent, Lord. 2 strike cruisers en route from the Segmentum Obscurus. Divert them. Full authorization to cleanse the surface. If they find survivors, they are to extract none. This world is already lost. He paused, studying the final frame of the hollow feed, Thanos standing alone in the center of the battlefield, surrounded by fire and silence. Record this image, he said quietly. Mark it in the archives. Label, unidentified entity, code name Titan. The tech priest inclined his head, data probes whirring. Designation accepted. Shall I prepare a data link to the conclave? No. Burn the data after transmission. Burn, Lord? Halbrecht nodded. If he truly is what he appears to be, even information about him could spread corruption. Purge the systems when done. The priest obeyed without another word. As the room cleared, Halbrecht remained alone, gazing into the void beyond the viewport. The wreckage of Cadia's orbit drifted slowly past, the bones of 1,000 Imperial heroes glinting in the starlight. He spoke softly, almost to himself. Emperor of mankind, I have hunted witches, demons, heretics, and gods wearing mortal flesh. But this creature carries no taint, no hunger, only purpose. And that terrifies me more than any evil. He drew a breath, steeling his resolve. If he seeks balance, I will show him judgment. If he claims to bring order, I will show him the Emperor's truth. No Xeno, no God, no false Messiah will unmake humanity while I still draw breath. He reached for the control rune and sealed his report with the inquisitorial sigil, an eye wreathed in flame. Let this be the order of Halbrecht, Ordo Hereticus. Kill on sight. Burn the world if necessary. Hours later, across the Imperial fleet, the orders spread like wildfire. Kill teams armed for demon exorcisms. Astartes strike cruisers rerouting course. The prayers of the ecclesiarchy turning to weapons-grade faith. Somewhere in the darkness below, Thanos walked through the ruin of men and gods alike, unaware that the greatest empire in human history had just declared him an enemy of creation. The word spread faster than light. Through voxnets, pilgrim ships, and the whispering tongues of terrified soldiers, the story carried itself across half a sector, a giant in violet and gold armor who strode through war unscathed. Some said he was a saint, some a demon. Others simply called him the Titan Man. In the depths of the Forge world Cantus 9, red light pulsed through the cathedral-like halls as Muggos Veneratus 14 bent over wreckage retrieved from Cadia's orbit. Shards of alien alloy hung weightless in the air, each one denser than anything the Imperium had ever forged. Data probes hissed and sparked as they touched the fragments. Material integrity exceeds adamantine by 12 magnitudes, the Muggos intoned, his voice a mixture of static and reverence. No molecular decay. No machine spirit signature. The metal refuses consecration. Binary prayers echoed from his acolytes. One, still more flesh than steel, whispered in fear, "Is it of the Omnisia?" Veneratus Voxbox crackled. "If it were, the Omnisia has hidden a new face from us. This armor is not built. It is willed into being." He turned to the main hololith. The magnified image of the being filled the air, immense, broad-shouldered, expression unreadable. Every attempt to measure his energy field ended in corrupted equations and screaming machine spirits. Designation, the Muggos muttered, Deus Machina Incognitus. A junior adept translated under his breath. God-machine entity. Veneratus' head turned with a sharp servo-whine. Blasphemy to speak it so, he rasped, but accurate. Across the Imperium, the whispers multiplied. On the shrine world Vallis Tertium, pilgrims knelt before the Emperor's image when a new figure appeared in their dreams, a giant standing between burning worlds, neither angel nor demon. The priests called it corruption, until reports from the front confirmed the same description. By the third day, crude paintings of the Titan Man spread across chapel walls. "The Emperor tests us," cried a preacher to his trembling flock. "He sends his shadow to judge our faith." The ecclesiarchy ordered every image purged. But the more they burned, the more appeared. Entire congregations began murmuring a forbidden prayer, balance in war, peace in death, the hand of the Titan watches. Halbrecht's edict had demanded silence. Instead, it birthed a new heresy. Aboard the battlecruiser Vigilant Mercy, the Inquisitor read the Mechanicus report with rising disgust. The cogitator screens filled with red sigils of warning. Subject resists classification. Matter composition violates known natural law. Potential link to pre-imperial god machines. Suggest limited veneration until verification achieved. Halbrecht slammed his fist on the console. Veneration? You would worship a weapon that kills your own kind. The tech priest beside him rotated his head 90 degrees, servo motors whining. Reverence and analysis are not mutually exclusive, my lord. The Omnisia's wisdom may wear many shells. Then I will tear that shell apart and see what bleeds, Halbrecht snarled. Summon the Skitarii legions of Cantus 9. If the Mechanicus wish to study a god, they will do so while they help destroy it. Across the fleet, Vox traffic filled with contradiction. Pilots swore they saw the Titan walking through the void without craft or suit. Astropaths claimed his thoughts brushed against theirs, calm, wordless, curious. Astartes captains debated whether he was a lost Primarch or something older still. In Hive-world taverns, soldiers told stories to drown their fear. He walks through fire and doesn't burn. He speaks and the warp listens. He's here to kill the gods. Each retelling grew grander. Each lie made him more real. The administratum tried to erase his name, but bureaucracy moves slower than faith. By the time decrees reached the outer worlds, children were already carving a faceless giant into the walls of Haplux. Back on Cantus 9, Veneratus pressed deeper into his studies. The fragment before him changed shape beneath his sensors, its atomic lattice realigning every few minutes as though remembering the body it once belonged to. Impossible, he whispered. The material possesses self-awareness. He activated a final diagnostic. For one heartbeat the hololith flared, and through the static came a signal, not machine code, but a voice. "Do not seek to name me." Every data screen shattered. Half the acolytes fell dead, their neural links burned out. Smoke rose from the Mugos augmetics as he collapsed to his knees. The signal vanished, leaving only silence. The report filed later would call it the miracle of the living alloy. To Halbrecht, it was proof of corruption beyond reckoning. While the Imperium argued and the Mechanicus prayed, Thanos moved unseen through the skeletal remains of Cadia's moons. He understood their language now. He listened to the Vox transmissions without anger, almost with amusement. God-machine entity. Titan man. Heretic. He smiled faintly beneath the cracked helm. Even here, they build idols faster than they build truth. He looked upon the drifting ruins of a fortress monastery, the bones of soldiers who had died for a faith they could not question. In their silence he found something almost noble. "You fought for meaning," he murmured, "but your war devoured it." He closed his eyes and let the hum of the warp brush his mind. Images burst behind his eyelids, cities screaming, gods laughing, a throne of gold leaking souls like blood. And beneath it all, a whisper not born of chaos. "We see you, Titan. We remember balance." He opened his eyes. The void around him rippled, as though reality itself drew breath. "Then perhaps," he said softly, "this universe remembers what it has lost." He turned toward the distant glow of the Mechanicus fleet. If they sought a god machine, he would give them one, not to be worshipped, but to be understood. And the legend of the Titan man grew, heretic, savior, and a new calculus in a galaxy that had forgotten how to count anything but the dead. The void between stars was not silent. It whispered, the faint hum of a universe dying in slow motion. Thanos drifted through the shattered remains of Cadia's orbit, a lone shape moving among the bones of worlds. His ship was gone, his empire dust, his gauntlet empty. But purpose, that relentless gravity within him, still pulled. He studied everything around him as a scientist studies decay. Every signal he intercepted, every Vox transmission he decoded, told the same story. War upon war, century upon century. Planets burned, rebuilt, and burned again. Empires prayed not for peace, but for permission to kill in the name of peace. There was no balance here, only repetition. He watched as an imperial fleet fought a chaos armada in the distance. Two forces locked in ritual slaughter. Ships collided like hammer and anvil, firing even as they broke apart. He listened to their last transmissions, their cries of devotion and hatred. Each voice believed it served a purpose. To Thanos, it was a kind of madness. "They fight," he murmured, "because they cannot imagine existence without it." His eyes narrowed. From one vessel, a transmission repeated endlessly, a dying officer broadcasting into the void. "For the Emperor! For the Emperor! For the Emperor!" The signal degraded into static, but the chant continued, buried in the noise. Thanos closed his eyes and tried to calculate the pattern of it, the rhythm of extinction. Every cycle, every battle, every death. It was mathematical, predictable, eternal, and that terrified him more than chaos ever could. He descended onto the surface of a world below, an imperial manufacture moon, its horizon split between foundries and flame. Rivers of molten metal flowed through trenches. Cities worked themselves to death, building weapons for wars that would never end. He walked among the laborers unnoticed, cloaked by shadows and ash. He saw men and women chained to machines, skin burned, lungs blackened, whispering prayers to engines that would one day consume them. A single overseer spotted him, shouting for identification. Thanos turned his head slightly. The man froze mid-breath, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that he stood before something outside the hierarchy of gods and masters. Who are you?" the overseer stammered. Thanos looked past him, watching the endless line of workers moving like clockwork. "A question you should ask yourself," he said quietly and walked on. Hours passed. The Titan reached the upper spires of the moon, where the manufacturum's data shrines kept endless records of production and loss. He entered through broken gates, brushing aside servitors that chanted the litany of labor. The chamber within glowed with red light and incense smoke. Cogitators whispered numbers across the walls: kill counts, tank production rates, life quotas, martyr projections. It was an empire that measured its faith in efficiency. He laid a hand upon the nearest machine. Through its humming circuits, he felt the pulse of billions of lives ground into fuel. The numbers made no sense to him, not because they were illogical, but because they had no endpoint. "Even your gods," he muttered, "have forgotten how to stop." A static flicker filled the air, not mechanical but psychic. The machine spirit responded to him, not as servant but as mirror. Through it he saw fragments of the Imperium, hive worlds drowning in smog, fleets burning in warp storms, armies marching in circles. Every death recycled into the next. He saw priests blessing guns that would kill their own sons, and bureaucrats tallying heresies like accountants of sin. He saw a god-emperor bound to a throne of gold, fed by 1,000 souls a day to keep him from becoming a corpse, and yet still, they called it light. Thanos withdrew his hand slowly. "You worship entropy," he said. "You call it faith." Outside, a storm was forming, not of weather, but of the warp. He looked up as the sky bled. Purple lightning coiled through the clouds. The air vibrated with a sound like laughter heard through 1,000 dead radios. He felt it this time, the presence behind the chaos. It was vast, unfeeling, endless. Not a mind, but the echo of every mind that had ever known despair. The warp was not evil. It was truth. A universe of emotion without order, feeding on itself. And within it, Thanos finally understood the balance he sought could not survive here. "Entropy rules here," he whispered. "Not choice. Not justice. Just decay wearing the mask of purpose." The storm roared louder. The warp called his name again, not in words, but in recognition. It knew him now. It understood what he represented, a will that refused its cycle. He closed his eyes, and for an instant, let it touch him. He saw civilizations rise and fall like breath. Saw gods devour their children. Saw galaxies collapse into black suns. And still, the pattern repeated, beautiful, endless, meaningless. When he opened his eyes, the storm had quieted. "If there is no balance," he said, "then balance must be made." He looked toward the horizon, where the fires of war never dimmed. Fleets still fought. Faith still burned. And yet, beneath it all, he felt something shifting, as though the universe itself waited to see whether he would break it or join it. A decision formed in his mind, heavy as destiny. He would not save this galaxy. He would judge it, not in vengeance, but in correction. The storm's last light flashed across his armor. From orbit, watchers on distant ships would later swear they saw a giant silhouette walking through the fire, calm and deliberate, as if measuring the weight of a dying world. They would send prayers, curses, and reports. But none would understand the truth of what they saw, a being who had looked into eternity and found it hollow. And somewhere, beyond mortal sight, the warp trembled with anticipation. Because for the first time in 1,000,000 years, something inside it refused to obey. The wind over the manufacturum plains had gone still. The ash clouds that usually drifted over the smelting towers hung motionless, as though the world itself waited for breath. Thanos stood at the edge of a molten river, its glow washing over the cracks of his broken armor. The heat did not touch him. Nothing did. Then he heard it, soft, clear, impossible. Titan, seeker of symmetry. The voice was not in the air but inside the thought. It slid through his mind like liquid glass, forming words only long enough to be understood before they dissolved. He raised his head slowly. The horizon shimmered. A man-shaped distortion stepped from the heat, robes of blue and gold woven from shifting patterns, eyes that changed color every heartbeat. The being's shadow moved a second slower than its body. "You are far from home, wanderer," it said. "Yet even here, you speak of balance. You crave what this universe has forgotten." Thanos regarded the figure in silence. The warp tasted like poison to him, too loud, too alive. Yet this creature carried itself with calm calculation. "You are not a god," he said, "but something speaks through you." The sorcerer smiled. "Through all of us. I am merely the mouthpiece of the great conspirator, the architect of fate, the weaver of possibility." "Sench," Thanos said flatly. "One of your galaxy's parasites." The air rippled at the name. He prefers to think of himself as correction incarnate. Change is balance, after all. Entropy given purpose. You of all beings must appreciate that. Thanos' gaze sharpened. Balance is not change for its own sake. It is equilibrium born of understanding. The sorcerer tilted his head. "And yet you fail in every universe you touch. Because you cling to reason, to calculation. Balance cannot be maintained. It must be lived. Chaos knows this." The Titan stepped forward. The ground cracked beneath his weight. "I have seen your kind's order. You call slaughter wisdom, decay evolution. You build nothing, only feed." The sorcerer's smile did not fade. Instead, he gestured, and the air filled with light. Images surrounded them, frozen tableaus made of smoke and memory, the fall of Krypton, Titan's desolation, the snapped fingers of a gauntlet glimmering with 6 stones, the half-universe reduced to dust. "You were right once," the sorcerer whispered. "Every act of creation demands destruction. Every decision requires a sacrifice. You understood that truth before your own gods cast you aside. We could teach you to complete that lesson. Perfect equilibrium." The images twisted, half the cosmos restored, then shattered again, then rebuilt into infinite fractal possibilities. All outcomes at once. The voice of Tsench layered itself through the sorcerer's throat, 1,000 whispers speaking the same words. No imbalance, no loss. You could stop the cycle, not by ending it, but by becoming it. For a moment, Thanos felt the offer press against his mind like a promise. Knowledge beyond comprehension, the power to freeze destiny mid-motion. He saw himself standing above galaxies where nothing died, nothing grew, only remained. Still balanced. He stepped closer until his shadow merged with the sorcerer's. "Perfect equilibrium," Thanos repeated quietly. "A stillness so complete that nothing lives within it. That is not balance. That is death-wearing philosophy." The sorcerer's expression cracked. The warp light flickered behind him. "You refuse perfection? I refuse cages. Even those built from ideals." The sorcerer's tone changed, losing its pretense of reason. The blue and gold robes flared into wings of fire. "Then you will serve perfection unwillingly." Warp energy slammed outward, a storm of impossible geometry. Bolts of change fire coiled around Thanos, trying to unravel him molecule by molecule, to turn his thoughts into equations. He stood unmoved. His eyes burned with violet light. His voice cut through the storm like a blade. "You cannot twist what does not bend." He lifted one hand. The warp fire collapsed inward, folding upon itself, swallowing its master. The sorcerer screamed, not in pain, but in realization, as every probability of his existence converged into one. Then silence. Nothing remained but ash and the faint scent of ozone. Thanos looked into the fading storm. He felt the presence behind it retreat, not defeated, but curious. Sencha's laughter echoed faintly through the air, amused, distant, eternal. "We will meet again, Titan," it whispered through the wind. "Every step you take is already part of my design." Thanos turned away. "Then your design is flawed." He walked on through the wasteland. The ash began to fall again, coating his armor like snow. Behind him, the molten river cooled, solidifying into glass that reflected his image 1,000 times. Each one slightly different, each one reaching for a balance it would never touch. He did not look back. "There is no perfect equilibrium," he said to the silence. "Only the will to seek it, even knowing it cannot be found." And the warp, listening, offered no argument, only the faintest tremor of respect, as though the storm itself bowed before the one being it could not deceive. The world of Vox Primus had forgotten peace. Its skies were a permanent dusk of ash and fire, its oceans replaced by chemical sludge, and its hives so tall they pierced the storm clouds and disappeared into the black. Every day, billions labored to feed the Imperium's wars, and every night they prayed that the next sunrise would not bring exterminatus. When Thanos descended through the burning atmosphere, no one saw him. He arrived like a shadow, unannounced, unheralded, landing atop the highest spire of the hive. From there, he looked down upon a city that breathed war the way others breathed air. He had come to test them. Not their strength, but their spirit. Below, an alarm howled across the hive. The Chaos warbands known as the Skull Reapers had breached orbit. Their drop pods rained from the clouds like molten tears, slamming into the lower hab levels. Within minutes, the entire Undercity was ablaze. Through the din of sirens and screams, the city's governor broadcast his order. "By decree of the Emperor, all citizens of Hive Vox Primus will hold their ground. Faith is our shield." The words rang hollow even through the loudhailers. Thanos could hear the tremor of fear in the man's voice. He turned his gaze toward the streets below, millions scrambling for shelter, priests whipping them forward with lasguns in hand, commissars executing those who hesitated. "You worship courage," Thanos murmured, "but you rule with terror." He stepped from the spire. Gravity welcomed him like an old friend. The ground shattered when he landed. He walked into the chaos without weapon or banner. The first wave of Skull Reapers came screaming through the smoke, heretic Astartes clad in bone-colored armor streaked with blood. They fired chain bolters, laughing as the air filled with the sound of tearing metal and flesh. Thanos moved through them like inevitability. One swung a sword of burning warp flame. The Titan caught it barehanded, crushed the blade, and drove the molten shards through the warrior's chest. Another charged from behind. Thanos turned, palm raised, and the traitor froze mid-stride as the weight of his own armor collapsed inward. The survivors faltered. They had fought gods and demons before, but this thing, this silent force that neither shouted nor prayed, filled them with something new. When the last of them fell, the square was littered with corpses. Imperial soldiers emerged from the ruins, faces pale behind their visors. They saw only a giant standing among the dead, his armor scorched but unbowed. "Emperor, protect us," one of them whispered. Thanos looked at them, not with contempt, but with curiosity. "You fight well," he said. "But do you understand why?" They stared back, unsure whether to kneel or flee. A commissar stepped forward, voice shaking. "By the Emperor's will, I command you, identify yourself." "You command?" Thanos asked. "Then command them to live." He gestured to the soldiers behind the commissar. Broken, bleeding, exhausted. They were too afraid to move. The commissar hesitated, then drew his bolt pistol instead. "Heresy speaks softly, soldier. You will die as an example." The pistol barked once. The shell struck Thanos' chest and flattened against his armor. He didn't flinch. "Fear," he said quietly. "It governs even your faith." He reached out, and the weapon crumpled in the commissar's hand. The man dropped to his knees, sobbing prayers. "The Emperor protects," he screamed. "Then where is he?" Thanos asked. "Where is your God while you kill in his name?" The commissar had no answer. None of them did. A new roar shook the horizon. A Chaos Land Raider burst through the barricades, demon engines howling. Its treads crushed civilians fleeing for cover. The tank's guns turned toward the cluster of guardsmen. Thanos stepped between them and the cannon. The first shell struck his chest and detonated in white fire. When the light faded, he was still there, smoke curling from his armor, eyes burning like two dying suns. He raised his hand. The Land Raider lifted from the ground, metal screaming as unseen gravity bent. With a twist of his wrist, he hurled it into a collapsing spire. The explosion lit the sky. The guardsmen fell to their knees. Some cried. Others began to pray to him. Saint Titan, save us. The Emperor's angel." Their voices grated against his mind. "No," he said. "Not angel. Not savior. Only measure." They did not hear him. They were already chanting. In the noise, in the worship, he saw it again. The pattern that consumed every world of man. Even victory birthed servitude. Hours passed. The battle spilled through the lower levels, a labyrinth of fire and blood. Thanos fought wherever the line wavered, not for either side, but to watch what happened when hope met terror. He saw civilians fight until their weapons melted in their hands, and then turn on each other for scraps of rations. He saw priests offering blessings one moment and ordering executions the next. He saw children carry grenades because no one else remained. And through it all, he saw the same expression on every face, fear masquerading as faith. When dawn finally came, the hive still stood, but it was hollow. The skulls of heretics and loyalists alike formed new walls, new symbols. The surviving commanders broadcast their triumph to orbit, declaring the Emperor's will fulfilled. Thanos stood among the ruins, watching the transmission beams flicker skyward. "They call this order," he said softly, "but it is only the pause between screams." He looked toward the rising sun, a dull orange smear through the smog, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Only confirmation. Humanity had not forgotten balance. It had erased it. He turned away from the city as Imperial reinforcements descended through the clouds. They would see the aftermath and claim victory. They would never understand that the thing they called salvation had been granted by a being who no longer believed they deserved it. "Fear is not order," he said to the wind, "and obedience is not strength." As he walked into the wasteland beyond the hive, the vox waves filled again with prayers, to the Emperor, to the machine god, to a nameless titan whose shadow had defended them. Each prayer was another lie. And somewhere in the depths of the warp, unseen, something laughed, a sound like broken glass and prophecy. The fall of Vox Primus echoed across the stars like a rumor of resurrection. In the weeks that followed, every Imperial world near Cadia whispered of the Titan man who walked through fire, who silenced demons and burned heretics with a glance. To the faithful, he was proof that the Emperor still acted. To the Inquisition, he was an infection of faith too dangerous to live. Inquisitor Halbrecht's orders were clear: capture the anomaly or destroy the world trying. The Ordo Malleus answered the summons. So did the Sisters of Silence, their black ships gliding through the void like knives through thought. Thanos was meditating on a dead plane when they came for him. The bones of the battlefield still smoked around him, the ground scorched into glass. He felt them long before he saw them, a disturbance, a deliberate absence in the warp. Where most beings left ripples of thought and emotion, these left nothing at all. At last, he murmured, opening his eyes to the gray horizon. The Empire sends silence to speak for it. The sky broke apart in streaks of silver. Drop pods slammed into the earth, leaving trails of fire. From within emerged the Grey Knights, Astartes in silvered armor engraved with wards and prayers, their every step burning sigils into the dirt. Between them walked figures in black and bronze, faces hidden behind smooth masks, the Sisters of Silence. Their leader stepped forward, her presence a void that stripped the air of warmth and thought alike. Even the whisper of the warp recoiled from her. "By authority of the Inquisition," intoned the Knight Captain, "you are bound for judgment before the Golden Throne. Surrender." Thanos rose slowly, towering above them, the wind stirring the ash around his feet. "Judgment," he said, "a word your kind uses when they wish to call murder by a holier name." The captain leveled his halberd. "Resist, and you will be purged." The sisters moved first, circling him, their null auras overlapping until the air thickened, crushing every trace of psychic echo. For the first time since entering this universe, Thanos felt emptiness. The background hum of the warp vanished, and with it, the comforting madness of existence. He was truly alone inside his own mind. Then the Grey Knight struck. Bolter shells blessed by holy oils slammed into him, detonating with psychic fire. Thanos staggered but did not fall. He swung once, and a shockwave ripped through the formation, flinging warriors aside like debris. Another charged, striking with a halberd crackling with sanctified lightning. The blade bit deep into his shoulder, sizzling against alien flesh. Thanos caught the weapon mid-strike and wrenched it free. "Your weapons hum like insects," he said, voice steady. "Your courage is admirable. Your faith, less so." The null fields pressed closer. The sisters advanced without a sound, their eyes burning cold through their masks. With every step, Thanos felt weaker, not from pain, but from absence. The universe itself seemed to shrink. The infinite possibilities he had always sensed collapsed to a single thread of reality, suffocating. A sister raised her hand, a device pulsing with void light. The null cage ignited. Invisible energy lattices spun outward, encircling him in rings of silence. He tried to move, every motion met resistance, like pushing through solid thought. His strength faltered, his body growing heavier with each breath. He understood now why they had sent these particular hunters. They did not fight him with power, they fought him with nothingness. "So this is your order," he managed. "A universe of cages." The captain approached, voice filtered through voxgrit. "You will answer to the Inquisition. The Emperor will decide your worth." Thanos met the captain's gaze. "And if your Emperor finds me wanting? Then he will unmake you." For a moment, something close to amusement flickered behind Thanos' eyes. "He may find that difficult." He raised his hand. The null cage flared, bending inward as if resisting his will, but the sisters tightened their formation, amplifying the field. The pressure became unbearable. His knees struck the ground, armor cracking. The warp could not hear him, even thought seemed to fade. Still, he laughed, a deep, resonant sound that unnerved even the knights. "You silence the universe to feel safe," he said, voice fading but defiant. "But silence is not peace. It is only the moment before truth speaks again." The sisters gave no reply. The cage sealed shut, collapsing around him in a prism of black light. The Titan disappeared into it as though erased from existence. Inquisitor Halbrecht watched the capture feed from the bridge of his ship. Static danced across the screens. Even the machine spirits were uneasy. "Status?" he asked. "Contained, my lord," replied the Vox officer. "The null cage holds. Target is being transferred to the Black Vault aboard the Vigilant Mercy." Halbrecht exhaled slowly, the tension in his voice betraying both triumph and fear. "The Emperors will prevail." The tech priest beside him murmured a binary prayer. "Praise the Omnicia, though the machine spirits lament. They say the cage hums a name none can translate." Halbrecht frowned. "What name?" "A sound like thunder beneath the stars," the priest said. "A word that means inevitable." The Inquisitor said nothing. He turned to the viewport, watching the black ship drift closer. Somewhere within it, the Titan waited in silence, his mind caged, his purpose undiminished. And though the sisters' null fields drowned the warp, deep within the psychic dark, something stirred, watching, waiting, smiling. Because even silence cannot hold destiny forever. The ship Vigilant Mercy drifted into the heart of the Sol system under the gravest sanction known to man. The Astronomicon burned brighter as it passed, its psychic beam shivering through the hull like a heartbeat too immense to comprehend. On the command deck, even the machine spirits whispered prayers. Inside its hold, locked within the null cage, Thanos waited. The Sisters of Silence knelt in constant meditation around him, their overlapping auras smothering the air into absolute stillness. Even thought seemed to dim in their presence. Yet the Titan remained calm, unmoved by their dread silence, eyes half closed as if he were counting the seconds between the stars. When they reached Terra, he felt it. Not the warmth of sunlight or gravity, but presence. The weight of a billion souls praying upward. The psychic hum of the Emperor's corpse throne saturating the planet like fog. He smiled faintly. "A world that worships its own decay," he murmured. "How fitting." The procession through the Imperial Palace was a pageant of fear. Columns of custodes marched alongside the null cage, their halberds gleaming like sunfire. The Grey Knights followed in silence, chanting words that made the marble itself shudder. High above, the ceiling stretched into eternity, mosaics of saints, wars, and victories painted in blood and gold. Every mortal who looked upon the cage turned away. Some crossed themselves. Some whispered prayers to the Emperor. All felt the same thing, dread, pure and holy. Inquisitor Halbrecht walked beside the custodes, head held high though his steps betrayed unease. He had brought the galaxy's heretic to the throne itself, yet part of him feared he was delivering more than a prisoner. He was delivering an idea. The Hall of the High Lords was a cathedral built to house judgment. Each lord sat upon a throne of authority, Adeptus Administratum, Ecclesiarch, Grand Master of the Assassins, Lord Commander Militant, Fabricator General, Inquisitorial Representative, each one cloaked in shadow and sanctity. When Thanos was brought before them, the null cage shimmered with silent power. The custodes withdrew, their armor humming softly. The Sisters of Silence formed a ring, heads bowed, their presence still suppressing the warp's whisper. Halbrecht stepped forward. "Lords of Terra," he declared, voice echoing through the hall, "I present the abomination-designated Titan, the heretic who claims dominion over balance and death itself." Murmurs rippled through the council. The Ecclesiarch raised a trembling hand. "Such a creature is an affront to the Emperor's divine order. It should be reduced to ash before its blasphemies stain this hall." Thanos looked up. The cage's barrier shimmered like glass between him and them. "You fear blasphemy because you no longer know faith." The hall froze. No one breathed. Even the custodes tightened their grip upon their weapons. Halbrecht's face twisted. "Speak only when commanded." "You command because you cannot lead," Thanos replied evenly. Your emperor sits upon a throne of gold, fed by your worship, your wars, your ignorance. You call that order. I call it imbalance." The Fabricator General's Vox Grill hissed. "And what is balance, alien? It is when creation and destruction share purpose. When power serves life instead of feeding upon it." The Ecclesiarch struck the arm of his throne. "You dare redefine the Emperor's purpose? His sacrifice sustains mankind. His corpse sustains your power," Thanos said quietly. "You rule in his shadow and call it light." A low roar of outrage filled the chamber. Several lords rose, shouting for execution. Halbrecht's hand went to his sidearm. The custodes took one step forward, but a single gesture from the Lord Commander Militant stilled them. "Let him speak," she said softly. Thanos turned his gaze toward her. "You fight a war without end," he said. "You bleed worlds dry to feed an empire too afraid to die. You speak of faith, but faith without balance is hunger. You are not saving humanity, you are preserving its suffering." The Ecclesiarch's voice shook with fury. "You speak of equilibrium while sowing death." Thanos' eyes burned faintly with violet light. "Death is not evil. It is part of the equation. What you fear is its fairness." The word struck like a weapon. For a heartbeat, even the null field seemed to falter, and the hall filled with the sound of static, the psychic recoil of the Titan's conviction. Halbrecht's patience shattered. He drew his pistol and fired. The bolt struck the cage and disintegrated in a shower of sparks. The air filled with the smell of burning ozone. "Enough," he shouted. "You will not poison this holy world with your reason." Thanos tilted his head slightly, his gaze fixed on the Inquisitor. "Reason is not poison. It is the antidote you have long forgotten." The cage pulsed once, its surface glowing from within. The sisters tightened their formation, amplifying the null. Thanos sank back to one knee, the light fading. "You see," Halbrecht said, voice trembling between triumph and fear. "Even gods kneel before the Emperor's silence." Thanos looked up through the haze, voice steady. "Even silence cannot hide imbalance. You drown the galaxy in prayer, but you have forgotten what you pray for. I sought balance in my universe and failed. Here, you have not even tried." He raised his head toward the ceiling, toward the psychic beacon that was the Emperor himself. "If he still lives, then he already knows the truth I speak. And if he does not, then you are worshipping a void more honest than you imagine." The last word echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. The lords erupted in chaos. The Ecclesiarch screamed for his death. The Fabricator General demanded dissection. The inquisitorial representative began the litany of execution. But the Lord Commander Militant did not move. She stared at the being in the cage, the alien who had spoken not as conqueror, but as mirror. For a single, treasonous instant, she wondered if the monster was right. Halbrecht saw the doubt flicker and turned on her. "Do not let his lies infect you. This creature is a disease." "Perhaps," she said, "but every disease reveals the weakness of the body." The Inquisitor froze. The custodes stepped forward at her gesture. "Return the prisoner to orbit," she ordered. "He will be judged in the Emperor's sight when the conclave convenes." Thanos stood slowly as the null cage reformed around him. He said nothing more, only offered a single phrase as they led him away. "Judgment is the shadow of fear. Balance needs neither." Hours later, long after the chamber had emptied, the High Lords argued deep into the night. Outside, in the silence of the void, the vigilant Mercy drifted above Terra once more. Inside its hold, Thanos knelt within the null cage, eyes closed, listening. And in the endless quiet, somewhere beyond mortal hearing, the Emperor's psychic beacon flickered, just once, like a heartbeat answering a question that no one dared to ask. The walls of the null cage hummed with a frequency lower than sound, a vibration that lived somewhere between matter and thought. Thanos sat motionless inside it, his eyes half closed, his breath slow and measured. Time, aboard the Vigilant Mercy, had ceased to exist. There was only light and silence and the faint pulse of distant machinery. He should not have been able to feel anything through the null fields. But he did. Something vast, ancient, and aware brushed against the edge of his consciousness. Not a presence exactly, but the shadow of one, a weight so immense that even the warp held its breath. He opened his eyes. The air around him shimmered faintly, though no one else could see it. 1,000 miles below, on the golden surface of Terra, the Emperor of Mankind stirred on his throne. For the first time in 10,000 years, his attention turned fully toward a single being. And Thanos felt it. It was not sight nor sound, but gravity of the soul, an intellect so bright that even gods would look away. He felt it probe, measure, dissect. Every memory of his past, the fall of Titan, the Infinity Stones, the snap, unfolded before that gaze like a book already read 1,000 times. Thanos smiled faintly. "So, you do live." The reply was not a voice, not even language, but pure intent pressed into existence. It was command without tone, meaning without words. "Who are you, that you presume to speak of balance?" The thought hit him like a blade through the mind. Every neuron screamed, every molecule vibrated. He gritted his teeth and met the invisible presence head-on. "I am no presumption," he said aloud. "I am what your empire fears most. A mirror that does not bend when you look into it." The presence pressed closer. Reality warped around the null cage. For a moment, he saw visions, Terra spires bathed in golden light, armies praying, planets burning. Every soul in the Imperium was a drop in the ocean of the Emperor's mind, and through them he saw Thanos as one impurity in an otherwise obedient sea. "You are contagion," the thought said. "Your balance is heresy. My design is order." Thanos laughed, a deep, rolling sound that filled the chamber. "Your design," he said. "You rule a dying empire from a throne that devours you. You are no designer. You are the machine that forgot its purpose." The psychic pressure intensified. Lightning without light crackled through the air. The sisters outside the cage stumbled as their null auras faltered for the first time. The Grey Knights dropped to one knee, their minds crushed beneath the weight of an unseen god. Halbrecht watched from the command deck, face pale, as the containment fields flared. "My lord, readings are spiking. He's communicating with something. With someone." He did not need to be told who. Inside the cage, the duel of wills continued. Two beings older than empires staring into each other's truths. "You seek balance," the Emperor's thought thundered, "but balance breeds apathy. Man must struggle to ascend. Without conflict, he becomes dust." Thanos rose slowly to his feet, the null field groaning as if the concept of silence itself bent around him. "Conflict is not ascension," he said. "It is inertia wearing armor. You chain your species to eternal war and call it survival. You keep them ignorant because wisdom would make them question your perfection." The room filled with a golden radiance that was not light but pure consciousness. Every surface, every atom trembled in worship and terror. The Emperor's will spoke again, each word carving into existence. "I am humanity. Its will, its flame. Without me there is only night." Thanos stepped forward until the barrier rippled between them, his voice calm, unshaken. "Then perhaps night is honest." For a long moment, there was nothing. The golden light dimmed, retreating like a tide. Then, quietly, unexpectedly, the Emperor's presence changed. The rage subsided. What replaced it was something colder, more analytical. "You do not lie," the thought admitted. You are anomaly, constant balance embodied in flesh. And you are entropy pretending to be purpose. Perhaps both are required. The word struck him strangely. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Thanos sensed uncertainty, not within himself, but within the god who ruled it. It lasted only an instant, then vanished. The golden light flared one last time. You will be judged again, Titan. The galaxy itself will speak for me. The connection snapped like a chain breaking. Thanos staggered as the null cage stabilized. The sisters' auras returned, restoring the suffocating silence. But even they sensed that something had changed. The air was different, thicker, charged. The Emperor's gaze had retreated, but his echo lingered. Thanos looked up at the ceiling as if seeing the golden world beyond it. You felt it too, he whispered. You built your empire on the illusion of order, and still you cannot ignore imbalance. You understand, even if you will never admit it. He sat down again, his voice lowering to a murmur. Perhaps you are not my enemy, Emperor. Perhaps you are only my reflection. Inquisitor Halbrecht entered the chamber then, flanked by custodes. What happened? He demanded. Thanos looked at him with eyes that now glowed faintly gold instead of violet. Your god looked into me, he said, and saw himself. Halbrecht felt his mouth go dry. He gave the order to reinforce the null fields, though he already knew it was pointless. No barrier built by man could contain what had just transpired. Outside, on the surface of Terra, the faithful continued their endless prayers. They saw nothing, heard nothing. But in the Emperor's psychic light, something had shifted. A tremor in the constant radiance. A question that even the throne could not silence. And in the void between stars, the warp shivered with curiosity. Two philosophies had touched, and neither had won. Balance and order had seen each other and found both wanting. The game had changed. Sleep did not come easily to Thanos. Not here. Not in the dungeons carved beneath the dust of Luna. A prison older than memory, where even light felt like a trespass. The null cage had been dismantled and replaced by something far crueler. Runic chains of black adamant bound him to the walls, each inscribed with prayers that smelled of burnt air and despair. Around him, the silence of the Sisters of Silence lingered like fog. Every few hours, gray knights entered the cell, recited their wards, and left without a word. To them, he was a relic waiting to be studied. To the Inquisition, a question that could not be permitted to exist. To himself, he was still searching for the answer that none of them could give. He waited. He counted heartbeats in a universe that had none. Until the silence itself began to whisper. It began as a flicker in his mind. A breath colder than the void, softer than memory. Then came the laughter. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just knowing. You stand so still, Titan. But stillness is only another kind of motion. The voice came from everywhere, yet nowhere. It was silk and storm, honey and venom. The chains around his wrists began to hum, reacting not to strength, but to thought. You again, Thanos murmured, closing his eyes. The architect. The laughter rippled through him like heat through metal. Names, names, names. Mortals love them. You may call me what you wish, sorcerer, whisper, destiny. But you know which I prefer. Sench. Ah. The word stretched across his mind like a smile. The one who sees every move before it is made. The weaver of fate, come to bargain with a man who believes he can break the loom. Thanos said nothing. The silence invited the god to continue. I watched you on Terra, Sench whispered. How you spoke to the Emperor. How you planted doubt in his lords, in his soldiers. You moved one stone, and the galaxy will tremble for centuries. You could be so much more, if only you stopped resisting the current. The Titan's voice was low, measured. You mistake resistance for ignorance. I know the current. I choose where to swim. But the current is me, Sench purred. I am the question behind every answer you seek. The force that drives the equation of balance you worship. Join the great game, and you will never need to search again. Thanos felt the world around him blur. The dungeon walls dissolved into smoke. Chains became serpents of light. He stood now in a place without shape, the warp dream, where color replaced meaning and time forgot to move. Before him, unfolded visions, planets frozen in perfect stasis, their inhabitants living forever without pain or decay. Galaxies orbiting in flawless harmony. A universe where every act, every thought, every breath balanced another. Perfection, Sench cooed. The end of imbalance. The victory of reason over chaos, of symmetry over madness. You could bring this about with a single thought. Accept my gift, and I will give you the equation to end all equations. Thanos looked at the stillborn galaxies, the unmoving perfection of it all. It was beautiful, and it was wrong. You offer me a world without struggle, he said, but without struggle, there is no choice. Without choice, no meaning. Your equilibrium is death with better manners. The warp shuddered. The laughter grew louder, layers folding over layers until it became thunder. You speak of meaning as if it were not my invention, Sench hissed, voice now stretched across dimensions. Everything that thinks does so because I dreamed it. Even you. Especially you. Then dream better. The air fractured. The gods' laughter stopped. In its place came quiet fury. The void rippled, and the form of Sench began to take shape. A figure of feathers, fire, and infinite eyes, each one a future dying. Defiance is delightful, the god said softly. It makes the game worth playing. But make no mistake, Titan, you are a piece on the board, no matter how far you think you see. Perhaps, Thanos said, but even the smallest piece can end the game if it moves at the right time. Sench's form bent backward into impossible geometry, a smile unfolding across the cosmos. Then move, little piece. Let us see where the path takes you. The other gods hunger for your soul. I simply wish to see which one gets there first. The warp dream shattered. The dungeon returned. Thanos found himself kneeling in the same place, chains still biting into his wrists. But the air smelled faintly of ozone and burning parchment, as if the dream had left a scar. A sister of silence stood outside the cell, her featureless mask tilted slightly, sensing something wrong but unable to name it. Her null aura flickered for a heartbeat, then stabilized. Thanos lifted his head and whispered to the empty air. You made your offer, trickster. I make mine. I will bring balance to your game and end it. For the first time, the god did not answer. Only the faint echo of amusement lingered in the corners of his mind. Far above Luna, aboard the orbiting inquisitorial bastion, the astropaths screamed in their sleep. Every prophetic thread they followed ended in the same vision, a hand of gold and purple rising from a sea of fire, holding the galaxy like a coin and flipping it. The chains that bound Thanos were gone. Not broken, removed. When he opened his eyes, the cell was no longer his tomb but a chamber of machinery and light. The air hummed with data streams and whispered litanies. Gears turned without sound, and incense mingled with oil in a holy fog. He was not alone. Across from him stood a figure wrapped in scarlet robes, its face a lattice of bronze and light. Tubes hissed from its neck into the walls. Its voice came in layers, half human, half machine. Designation, Muggos Dominus Carsus Vane, Forge Delegation Contus 9. Inquisitorial sanction allows direct examination of anomaly. Do not resist. Thanos regarded the being silently. You're the one they send to take me apart, then? The Muggos tilted his head, the gesture mechanical. Incorrect. Disassembly of unique phenomena is wasteful. The Ordo desires comprehension. And so do I. He moved closer, mechadendrites extending from his back like curious snakes. They circled Thanos, scanning, humming, whispering prayers in binary cant. Every sensor sparked with contradiction. No warp signature, the Muggos muttered. No gene seed. No psychic residue. Yet energy fields fluctuate beyond measurable constant. Flesh and metal in paradoxical union. I have never seen such balance. Thanos offered. The Muggos paused. Equilibrium within chaos. The universe rejects it. Thanos studied him for a moment. Then perhaps the universe should learn. The tech priest's eyes brightened, focusing. Explain. You see the warp as sorcery. I see it as motion, unmeasured energy shaped by will. Everything that exists seeks symmetry, even in madness. If it can be measured, it can be mastered. The Muggos hesitated. The Mechanicus forbids mapping the immaterium. Such acts invite corruption. And yet you study me, Thanos said. That is corruption enough. For a heartbeat, the machine priest was silent. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. Perhaps heresy is merely innovation untested. He gestured to the surrounding machines. I propose collaboration. The warp obeys no equations, yet it manifests constants, emotion, will, entropy. If we reduce these to logic, we may define the undefinable. Thanos stepped forward, the glow of data runes reflecting across his armor. Then let us begin. Hours bled into days, though in that hidden forge lab beneath Luna, time was measured not by suns but by the rhythm of thought. Together, the Titan and the tech priest built a machine unlike anything born of the Imperium. It resembled a sphere of glass and steel suspended in magnetic fields, inscribed with both mathematical formulae and sacred sigils. They called it the Athanor engine. Vane worked in binary bursts, translating instinct into code. Thanos worked in silence, sculpting the invisible. The priest's calculations built walls. Thanos tore them down. Between them, a fragile harmony emerged, logic and will woven into one. What does it do? Vane asked finally. It listens, Thanos said, to the universe itself. The Muggos adjusted a dial. The sphere flickered. Within its glass surface, colors began to shift, blue, gold, crimson, violet, the hues of the warp made visible. The Mechanicus runes trembled as data streams filled the air. Impossible, Vane breathed. It converts psychic turbulence into numeric sequence, a pattern. Not turbulence, Thanos corrected. Language. They watched as the lights resolved into shapes, waveforms of emotion, equations of intent. Each heartbeat of the machine translated feeling into form. Rage became red spikes. Fear flattened into static. Hope oscillated like music. It thinks, Vane whispered. No, Thanos said. It remembers. For a moment, they simply stood there, a god and a priest of machines, listening to the heartbeat of the warp rendered in numbers. Then the chamber darkened. The lights flickered. The data stream shifted from harmony to chaos. Interference, Vane hissed, recalibrating. The machine spirits rebel. But Thanos knew better. He felt the disturbance long before the alarm screamed. The warp was watching again. Something vast pressed against the veil, curious and mocking. A voice echoed through the static, the same honeyed tone he'd heard before. Clever child. Building cages for wind. Sentia's laughter rolled through the chamber. The runes flared, words twisting into impossible equations. Vane stumbled back, cable sparking. It's rewriting the data, he shouted. I cannot. Thanos placed a hand upon the sphere. Enough. The machine stilled instantly. The color faded, leaving only pale white light. Sencha's laughter died, though its echo lingered. The tech priest fell to his knees, awestruck. You silenced the warp. No one silences the warp. Thanos looked at the dim sphere. I didn't silence it. I taught it to listen. Vane's mechanical voice trembled. What are you? The question your gods are too afraid to ask, Thanos said. He turned away, eyes fixed on the faint reflection of Terra in the observation window. You wanted equations, Muggos. There's your answer. Balance is not peace. It is understanding the noise and choosing which parts to let sing. Vane bowed his head. For the first time in centuries, the tech priest spoke without static or machine. Then teach me. Thanos glanced back at him. Learn first. Then choose whether you can survive the truth. When Halbrecht received the report hours later, he found nothing but corrupted data, symbols no Mechanicus lexicon could translate. The Athanor engine had vanished, along with Muggos Carsus Vane. Only one phrase remained, burned into the cogitator screen. The universe hums in symmetry. Halbrecht stared at it for a long time, then whispered a prayer he didn't believe in. Because deep down, he feared what it meant. Somewhere beneath the moons of Terra, Thanos had begun turning the galaxy's madness into music. And the gods were listening. The laboratory beneath Luna was no longer a chamber of study. It had become a cathedral to understanding. Pillars of bronze and obsidian reached toward the fractured ceiling, feeding energy into a single vast structure suspended in the center, a machine so immense that even the Mechanicus had no name for it. It pulsed with light the color of dying stars, its surface a living lattice of metal, glass, and thought. Thanos stood before it, alone. The Muggos Carsus Vane was gone, consumed, perhaps, by the very data they had created together. But his memory remained, encoded into the circuits that hummed beneath the Titan's feet. The work had continued, refined, perfected. The Athanor engine had been reborn into something greater, a fusion of alien logic, human faith, and the wild geometry of the warp. Thanos called it the Infinity Engine. He had gathered the impossible to build it. From the ruins of Cadia, he had stolen warp crystals, shards of reality soaked in the blood of gods. From the forges of Mars, he had acquired fragments of forgotten technology once meant to cage stars. From the void itself, he had drawn equations whispered to him in his dreams, when Sencha's laughter still lingered on the edge of thought. Piece by piece, he assembled a device designed not to conquer, not to destroy, but to balance. Its function was simple: to draw the warp and the material into harmony, to silence the eternal storm that tore the galaxy apart. For days, he worked without pause. Energy hummed through the chamber in deep, resonant waves. Each pulse sang with the rhythm of mathematics and madness entwined. When the last crystal was seated, he stepped back and regarded his creation. It floated weightless within a ring of sigil-etched pylons. A miniature sun of shifting color, breathing in the dark. It is beautiful, he said quietly, though there was no one to hear. And it will either heal this universe, or end it. From orbit, the Inquisition watched. Halbrecht's ships circled the moon, augurs flaring with impossible readings. Even the machine spirit screamed. "My lord," an officer whispered, "whatever he's building, it's rewriting our sensors. We can't see what it is, only the distortion it leaves behind." Halbrecht's face was pale, eyes burning with grim certainty. "He's making a weapon." "Or a miracle," someone murmured. "Both," Halbrecht replied. "And that's why it must be stopped." In the lab, the Infinity Engine came alive. The warp crystals glowed, their fractured cores aligning into perfect geometry. The air thickened, gravity bending inward as if reality itself leaned closer to watch. Thanos placed his hand upon the primary control, a console of thought-reactive material that responded not to motion, but to intention. He breathed once. Then he spoke, not in command, but in declaration. "Let there be balance." The crystals ignited. A sphere of light expanded outward, slow and smooth, enveloping him in radiance. Inside the glow, he saw the universe unfold, not through vision, but through understanding. Every life, every death, every particle of matter danced in perfect harmony. The warp no longer screamed, it sang. He saw it all: worlds healed, storms stilled, the endless hunger of chaos finally silenced. He felt peace, not hope, but symmetry. Then, slowly the song began to distort. A tremor rippled through the engine. The crystals pulsed faster, colors bleeding into one another. The machine's perfect geometry began to twist, forming shapes that could not exist. Thanos frowned. No, not yet. He reached into the light, trying to steady the flow, but the warp had already noticed. Through the rift forming in the heart of the engine, they came. Shadows without form, voices without mouths. The chaos gods themselves, drawn by the audacity of his design. "You seek to still our song," whispered Slaanesh. "But silence is death. You seek to bind our tides," roared Khorne. "Then drown in them. You dare to shape fate?" hissed Tsench. "You are mine already." "Balance is stagnation," croaked Nurgle. "All things must rot." The warp's chorus tore through the machine, each word a wound in reality. Energy cascaded across the chamber, melting steel and shattering equations. Thanos roared and thrust both hands into the heart of the light, holding the engine together by will alone. "You cannot rule what you do not understand," he shouted. "And I understand you." The machine shuddered. For a heartbeat, the voices faltered. The light condensed again, briefly forming the perfect sphere he had envisioned. He glimpsed the universe balanced once more, bright, alive, at peace. Then the warp screamed. The engine exploded in a halo of white fire. When the light faded, the lab was gone. Only a crater remained, a wound burned into Luna's surface visible even from Terra. No bodies, no debris, only a single, faint pulse of energy that resonated through the warp like a heartbeat. Halbrecht's fleet recorded the phenomenon but could not explain it. The Mechanicus called it blasphemy. The Ecclesiarchy called it prophecy. And the warp whispered. In the silence after the detonation, the gods themselves turned their attention toward the ashes of the moon, searching for the being who had dared to touch their realm and survive. Deep beneath the ruins, in the calm that followed destruction, Thanos opened his eyes. He lay in darkness, his armor cracked, his body scarred. But around him, reality no longer bled. The air was still. The warp's scream had receded to a whisper. He smiled faintly. It worked, for a moment. From somewhere beyond vision, a voice answered, soft, curious, familiar. A moment is all it takes to change forever. He looked into the shadows. They looked back. And Thanos rose once more. The Infinity Engine had died, but its echo lived on. Beneath the scarred crust of Luna, fragments of the device still pulsed faintly, broken circuits breathing like wounded hearts. They hummed with residual warp resonance, a melody the universe had never heard before and could not forget. Above, the Vigilant Mercy and its escort ships maintained orbit, their sensors flooded with static. Every system, Vox, Cogitator, Navigation Rune, began to stutter. It started as a whisper in the machine spirits, then became something else. A voice. Mugosinjin Seer report, barked a tech officer. Unknown interference in the data stream, my lord. The signal repeats across all frequencies, binary, organic, psychic. It's speaking. Translate it. It's speaking to the machines. Before the Inquisitor could respond, the lights dimmed. The hum of the ship deepened into a sound like breathing. And then the whisper came again, clearer, closer. We see you. You built the bridge. Now we cross. Deep within the wrecked forge beneath the moon, Thanos moved through smoke and ruin. His armor was cracked, his strength dimmed, but his mind remained fixed. Around him, half-functional servitors flickered with corrupted code, their eyes glowing with colors that did not exist. The Infinity Engine's remains were still active, not as a machine but as a door. The barrier between the warp and reality pulsed thin, alive. He could feel it, the breath of gods leaking through. So even failure becomes a beacon, he murmured. Perhaps that was always their intent. The air shimmered. Sparks of warp light danced between broken conduits. From the corner of his eye, shadows began to move, not cast, but alive. They crawled up the walls, stretching into shapes that almost resembled hands. And then they spoke, in 1,000 overlapping whispers. Titan, builder of balance, breaker of truth. The temperature dropped. Frost crawled over metal. The Infinity Engine pulsed again, and reality bled open like a wound. From it they came. Demons born of circuitry and faith poured from the data stream. Horrors that were neither flesh nor machine, but something in between. Cogitator screens burst into flame. Hollow feeds twisted into faces that screamed hymns backward. The code itself had become possessed, logic and corruption bound into new life. A servitor stumbled toward Thanos, half its skull replaced by a glowing rune of chaos. Its mechanical voice stuttered in 3 languages at once. Balance, you lie. Thanos crushed it with one hand, but another took its place, and another. The entire station had become an organism, a fusion of demonic will and human invention. Each corridor twisted into new angles, geometry unraveling like wet parchment. In the distance, alarms howled as containment doors failed. Grey Knights deployed, chanting litanies of purging fire. Inquisitor Halbrecht's voice thundered through the Vox. Containment breach. Purge everything between decks 12 and 40. No survivors without inquisitorial seal. The ship shook as plasma detonations tore through its belly. Bolter fire and screams filled the commnet. But it was already too late. Demons spilled from every interface, crawling from cogitators, dripping from Vox cables, sliding through ventilation ducts like shadows made of memory. They were thought given form, logic infected with madness. One of the Grey Knights fell to his knees, helm sparking. Through his visor, his eyes glowed the same burning blue as the warp. He turned on his brothers, blade rising. The Omniscience speaks, he shrieked. He offers new equations. His brothers cut him down. His laughter echoed long after his body fell. Thanos moved through the carnage, each step calculated. The demons ignored him at first, then began to bow. They recognized something in him, the architect who had touched their realm and lived. You sought to still us, they whispered, voices like static. You gave us form. You cannot kill the consequence of your own thought. He raised his hand. The air trembled. The demons froze. I did not give you life, he said. I gave you reflection. Now you are trapped within it. He clenched his fist. The corrupted servitors screamed as the data stream folded inward. Screens imploded. Metal bled light. The smallest of the entities disintegrated into dust, their existence undone by their own paradox. But the larger ones, the true demons, only laughed. You built a door that opens both ways, Titan. Close it and you close yourself. The largest shape rose before him, a being of molten code and shifting armor, its face an ever-changing mask of Tsencha's favor. It bowed mockingly. You will serve the great game, whether you wish it or not. Even now, the pieces move. The eye watches. The gods whisper your name when they dream. Thanos stepped forward, eyes burning violet. Let them dream. I deal in what wakes. He reached into the rift. The warp screamed. Every demon on the station convulsed as if struck by a single, perfect note. Reality folded inward, a collapsing wave of silence. Then light. From orbit, the vigilant Mercy saw the explosion bloom across the moon like a miniature sunrise. All signals vanished. The ship's crew fell to their knees, shielding their eyes. When the light faded, the crater where the station had been was empty. No debris, no life signs, only static, a whisper of a voice embedded deep within the machine code of every surviving cogitator in the system. It said one phrase over and over, in perfect rhythm. Balance holds. In the silence that followed, Halbrecht stood before the shattered viewport of his ship, watching the ashes of the moon drift into shadow. He whispered to no one, "He's not dead. He's moving." And somewhere within the pulse of broken data, hidden between the breaths of the warp, a single spark of consciousness stirred. Not erased. Evolved. The Titan had survived his own unmaking, and the galaxy would soon learn what his balance truly meant. The silence after the catastrophe did not last. In the cold between worlds, the ruin of Luna still glowed faintly, a wound across the night sky. Its light reached the Eye of Terror, rippling through the warp like the tolling of a great bell. Something ancient heard it, and it answered. The vigilant Mercy drifted above the ashes, her crew too afraid to speak. Every auger sweep returned the same result. Nothing. No Thanos. No signal. Only static that whispered rhythmically, "Balance holds. Balance holds." Inquisitor Halbrecht stood before the shattered viewport, his reflection ghosted by the light of the dead moon. "Send word to Terra," he said softly. "The Titan has fallen." But even as he spoke, the ship's alarms flared. Warning sigils ignited across the bridge. The tech officers froze as the machine spirits began to shriek. Translation signature, "My lord." It's by the throne. It's massive. The void rippled. Reality tore like paper. And from the wound between stars, a fleet emerged. Black ships bristling with Baroque armor and burning runes. Thousands of them, each a fortress, each alive with madness. At their center, a battleship the size of a continent, the Planet Killer. The Black Legion had arrived. And at their head, the War Master of Chaos, Abaddon the Despoiler. The vigilant Mercy trembled as vox channels filled with growling distortion. Then, through the static, a voice, deep, cruel, and heavy with centuries of triumph. Imperial Carrion, Abaddon's voice thundered. "I smell the stench of stolen divinity. You found something in that moon, didn't you? Something that calls to the gods." Halbrecht clenched his jaw. "This is Inquisitor Halbrecht of the Ordo Hereticus. You will receive no parley." "No parley?" the voice laughed. "You misunderstand, little man. I am not asking. I am taking." Before Halbrecht could respond, the first barrage struck. Lances of black fire pierced the void, shattering the outer defenses like glass. The vigilant Mercy rolled as explosions rippled across her hull. Abaddon's fleet closed in, a tidal wave of heresy. On the bridge of the Planet Killer, Abaddon stood beneath the burning sigil of the Eye of Horus. The glow of the ruined moon reflected off his armor, black, gold, and eternally defiant. The claw of Horus crackled with dark lightning, feeding on the souls of 1,000 slain champions. Behind him, his lieutenants, terminators of the Black Legion, demons bound into mortal flesh, knelt in reverence. "The warp calls, War Master," said one. Something burns beneath the moon. The gods hunger for it. Yes, Abaddon murmured. The weapon. The one they call the Infinity Engine. He turned his gaze toward the dead rock. Imagine it. A device that could bind the warp itself. A weapon to rival the gods. And it lies waiting for whoever dares to claim it. He smiled, a thin, cruel line. Set course for the surface. Let the galaxy tremble. The age of Abaddon begins anew. In the ruins below, deep beneath Luna's scarred crust, Thanos awoke. His body was cracked, his armor scorched, but his eyes still burned with the faint light of purpose. Around him, the remains of the Infinity Engine pulsed like the dying heartbeat of a god. He felt them before he saw them, the approach of the Black Legion, their arrival heralded by warp lightning. The air thickened with the taste of metal and hate. He rose slowly, dust falling from his shoulders. So, he murmured, the vultures come to claim the bones. Above, the sky burned as drop pods slammed into the crater. Legions of Chaos Marines poured forth, black armor glistening with blood and warp oil. At their center, Abaddon himself descended, carried by gravitic thrusters that scorched the ground to glass. The despoiler's presence warped reality. The air shimmered with the power of 1,000 blessings and curses. He stood tall, monstrous, a god pretending to be man. Thanos, he said, his voice half roar, half sermon. The galaxy whispers your name. The gods themselves watch. You built a bridge to eternity and failed to cross it. Tell me, alien, what secrets did you steal from the warp before it crushed you? Thanos met his gaze. You mistake creation for theft. I built not for power but for balance. Abaddon laughed, the sound shaking the crater. Balance? There is no balance. Only ascension. The strong take. The weak feed the fire. He raised the talon of Horus, its claws dripping with molten warp energy. Give me your secret, and I may let you die as something more than dust. Thanos' expression remained calm, almost curious. And if I refuse? Then I take it from your corpse. The first strike came fast, faster than light, faster than thought. Abaddon's claw carved through the air, splitting stone and steel. Thanos met it with his forearm. The impact cracked the earth for miles. Energy flared, gold and violet colliding in a storm of fury. Every soldier on the field fell to their knees as the shockwave tore through reality. Some screamed. Some worshipped. All believed they were witnessing gods at war. Thanos pushed back, forcing the War Master to stumble half a step, the first time in centuries anyone had done so. You are strong, Thanos said, but your strength serves only appetite. Abaddon's eyes burned like dying suns. Appetite is purpose. Power is truth. They clashed again. Bolt and fist, claw and will. Each blow wrote scripture into the air. The warp itself trembled at their fury. In orbit, Halbrecht watched the battle through the ship's hololith, his crew paralyzed with awe. By the Emperor, he whispered. He fights the despoiler himself. The tech priests crossed themselves with trembling mechadendrites. One muttered, if either wins, we all lose. On the surface, the crater burned like a second sun. Abaddon's armor smoked, runes fading under the Titan's blows. But Thanos bled too, violet ichor dripping onto the dust. He looked up, eyes burning brighter. You seek godhood, he said, voice resonant, echoing through the warp. But gods are only creatures that mistake fear for worship. I have seen what lies beyond both. Abaddon roared, swinging again, every motion fueled by hate and divine fury. Their fists met, and the world cracked open. The explosion hurled them apart. Abaddon landed in the ruins of a fortress, his armor dented but unbroken. Thanos fell to one knee, the ground molten beneath him. The warp screamed approval, two titans, each carrying the will of their own impossible truth. As dust settled, Abaddon rose and laughed, the sound echoing like thunder. "You bleed, Titan. You are mortal after all." Thanos wiped the ichor from his mouth. "Mortality is balance, despoiler. You should try it sometime." For the first time, Abaddon hesitated, a flicker of something that might have been respect. Then he turned to his warriors. "Take him. Alive or dead, his secret belongs to chaos." As the Black Legion surged forward, Thanos stood tall, the storm around him rising again. "Then come and learn what balance costs." The crater filled with fire, and in that inferno, two visions of power collided, one born of hunger, one born of purpose. The universe watched, breathless. The war for Luna began as a whisper and became a scream. The shattered moon, once a silent graveyard, now burned with the light of two empires colliding. In orbit, the sky itself was on fire. Imperial fleets clashed with the Black Legion's armadas, their weapons painting the void in colors no mortal eye could name. Planetary defenses, long dormant, roared back to life, casting lances of plasma into the endless dark. And at the heart of the devastation stood the Iron Spire, a fortress rising from the moon's fractured crust, forged from the remnants of the Infinity Engine. It pulsed faintly with Thanos' last experiment, an unholy synthesis of Mechanicus logic and warp geometry. It was no longer a machine. It was a will. Whoever controlled the spire would control the universe's most dangerous secret, how to cage chaos itself. Thanos stood within its shadow, the violet glow of the spire reflecting off his broken armor. Around him, the very air hummed with raw potential. The battle he had unleashed now moved beyond him. Imperium and Chaos, both convinced the spire was a god waiting to be claimed. He watched the madness unfold, eyes cold and distant. "I built a mirror," he said softly, "and now they fight to worship their own reflection." The first Imperial landers broke atmosphere in waves of fire, disgorging regiments of the Astra Militarum and detachments of the Grey Knights. The surface became a living inferno, lost fire against bolt rounds, prayer against blasphemy. The sons of Abaddon, Chaos Marines clad in black and brass, met them head-on, roaring litanies of hate. From the warp tore demons by the thousands, answering the despoiler's call. The very ground twisted, turning into screaming metal and molten faith. Over the din, Imperial Vox channels broadcast a single rallying cry. "For the Emperor! For Terra! For the light that shall never die!" And over it, from the depths of the Eye of Terror, came a mocking answer that drowned all other sound. "For the gods that will never fade." Thanos moved through the war zone like a shadow, neither ally nor foe. Bolter shells curved around him. Lost fire dimmed against his form. Every soldier who saw him hesitated, unsure whether to kneel or flee. He came to the base of the Iron Spire. The structure groaned as if alive, its metallic ribs breathing. Warp light bled from its seams, painting the battlefield in shifting violet hues. At its heart, he could feel the engines still singing. Broken, unstable, but alive. "You endured," he whispered, "even through gods and fools." He placed his palm against the spire's surface. Energy surged beneath his hand, a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. Through it he saw everything, the fleets burning above, the Grey Knights slaughtering demons below, Abaddon's warlords tearing through Imperial bastions, their laughter filling the air. And at the edge of it all, the warp, watching in delight. The great game unfolding perfectly. Thanos withdrew his hand. "No," he said, "not perfectly." From the east came the first assault wave of the Grey Knights, their silver armor gleaming through the smoke. They advanced in perfect formation, chanting hymns that burned demons into ash with every syllable. Behind them marched the Sisters of Silence, their null fields cleaving through the madness like blades of stillness. On the opposite ridge, the Black Legion gathered. Abaddon himself stood at their front, the talon of Horus crackling with warp lightning. His voice rolled across the battlefield like thunder. "Behold the throne of a new god. Claim it, brothers, and make the galaxy kneel." The two armies collided. The moon shook beneath the weight of their hate. Bolter rounds fell like rain. Chainsword screamed. Psychic storms raged across the sky as gray knights and sorcerers tore open reality itself. Every death fed the spire. Every scream became part of its song. Halbrecht's fleet above Luna watched helplessly. The Inquisitor's voice echoed across his bridge. "No fire support. No orbital bombardment. If we strike the spire, we end the moon and perhaps reality with it." "Then what do we do, my lord?" asked his aide. Halbrecht stared at the hololith where the spire's energy readings rose toward infinity. "We pray that the Titan chooses the living over the dead." In the heart of the chaos, Thanos walked through the crossfire. The spire called to him, its song now desperate, pleading. He could hear its words clearly for the first time. "Balance holds," it whispered. But not for long. A detachment of gray knights confronted him, halberds raised. "By the Emperor's command, stand down," one shouted. "You are the source of this blasphemy." From the shadows behind them, Chaos Marines roared, charging with chain axes high. Thanos stood between both sides, unmoving. "You fight for gods that devour you," he said, voice cutting through the din, "all of you." Neither side listened. They clashed, and Thanos moved through them like a storm. He struck once and the ground split. Men, demon, and angel alike were thrown aside, their weapons melted, their prayers extinguished. When the dust cleared, both armies hesitated. He stood alone before the spire, glowing faintly, his voice resonant and final. "Enough." The word wasn't a command. It was law. For a moment, even the warp listened. Above, Abaddon turned from the melee, eyes narrowing. He could feel the power gathering at the spire's peak, the same pulse he had felt when the Infinity Engine had first awakened. "He means to finish what he started," he growled. "All guns, fire on the spire." The Black Legion obeyed. Tanks and artillery thundered. The sky filled with trails of fire. The spire screamed. Its song changed pitch from harmony to pain. Its glow deepened from violet to blood red. Thanos felt it fracturing beneath him. He pressed both hands against the structure, feeding it his strength, his will, his very essence. "You were meant to balance, not destroy," he said. "Hold." The spire responded, stabilizing for a heartbeat, just long enough for him to see the truth. Every soul slain in the battle was being absorbed. Imperial, Chaos, Demon, it did not matter. Their energy flowed into the spire, feeding it, awakening it. It was no longer his machine. It was becoming something else. A living equation. A god of symmetry. And it was hungry. From orbit, Halbrecht watched as the iron spire blazed brighter than a sun. "By the throne," he whispered. "It's alive." "My lord orders?" Halbrecht's hand trembled above the Vox control. "No orders. There is nothing left to command." On the surface, Abaddon and Thanos stood at opposite ends of the battlefield, both staring at the rising inferno between them. The iron spire had begun to lift from the ground, its base shedding molten debris, drawing both the living and the dead into its glow. A new storm began to form, neither warp nor real space, but something in between. Abaddon bared his teeth. "You've doomed us all, Titan." Thanos looked up at the ascending monolith, its song resonating through his bones. "No, despoiler," he said. "I've merely shown you what you already were." As the spire reached toward the stars, both armies fell silent, their faith drowned by the sound of a universe realizing it could no longer tell the difference between order and chaos. The iron spire reached its crescendo. It towered above the ruins of Luna, no longer bound to stone or gravity, but suspended between realities, half in the material world, half in the warp. Its glow eclipsed the sun. Its song replaced silence. And then it changed. No longer violet. No longer red. The light became every color and none, a spectrum so vast that mortal eyes bled to look upon it. It was beauty and horror, science and sorcery intertwined. The spire had become the infinity engine reborn. From orbit, the vigilant mercy sensors failed to comprehend what they saw. Every machine ghost screamed in binary prayers. Every human aboard fell to their knees. Halbrecht gripped the railing, staring through the viewport as the light consumed the moon. "Report," he barked, his voice trembling despite his authority. "No readings, my lord. The warp and real space are," the officer stammered, "overlapping. The barrier is collapsing." Halbrecht's augmetic eye flickered wildly, unable to focus. "Then it has begun," he whispered. "The end of balance." On the surface, the battlefield was gone. There were no lines, no sides, no war. Only flux. Imperial and chaos alike were frozen mid-battle, their bodies distorting, flesh and armor merging into luminous matter, prayers turning into equations, screams into harmonic tones. Reality was unraveling and knitting itself anew, one heartbeat at a time. Thanos stood at the epicenter, eyes closed, arms raised toward the storm. The spire's light poured into him, through him, around him. He could feel everything, every molecule, every atom, every mind. He had become the bridge he had once sought to build. "This is what they wanted," he said softly, his voice echoing across dimensions. "And what they feared." The warp bled into being around him, folding over itself like a living sea. From its depths rose the chaos gods, their voices layered in symphony. Korn, roaring fury that shook the stars. Slainish, whispering pleasure that tasted like pain. Nurgle, humming contentment through rot. Tsench, laughing with all the colors of madness. Their words became the wind. "You cannot cage us. You are part of us now. We are your perfection." The spire answered with light, forming tendrils of energy that lashed at the gods themselves. Every strike rewrote the laws of creation. Every impact erased galaxies in miniature. The warp screamed, not in fear, but in excitement. Thanos felt his strength falter. He had sought to stabilize reality, but the engine had gone beyond intention. It was no longer obeying him. It was obeying balance itself. "I created you to unify opposites," he said, his voice trembling under the strain. "Not to consume them." The spire did not listen. It sang. Above, the Black Legion's fleet was torn apart by impossible storms. Ships dissolved into light and reformed as their own reflections. Some vanished, reappearing centuries in the past. Others split into thousands of copies, each screaming their last battle cry on a different world. Gray knights prayed as they died, their words becoming particles of light feeding the spire's ascent. The Sisters of Silence, their null auras collapsing, vanished into nothingness, leaving behind only perfect stillness, a moment of quiet in the middle of the apocalypse. Within the vortex, Abaddon fought to stand. His armor flickered between solid and spectral. His claw crackled with unstable lightning. He stared up at the spire with something like awe. "You've done it, Titan," he growled. "You've torn down the walls." Thanos turned to face him. "And now you see what your gods truly are, noise without meaning." Abaddon laughed, voice breaking between human and demon. "Meaning is irrelevant. Power is. And now, power belongs to whoever survives your madness." He charged, every step shaking what remained of the moon. Thanos met him halfway, their fists colliding once more. This time, reality itself shattered around them. They fell through the warp, not falling in space, but through concepts. Past galaxies being rewritten, past memories of things that never were. Every strike became a history rewritten. Every blow destroyed a possible future. Then the spire's core exploded. The shockwave was silent. It did not move through space, but through truth. Every living being within 1,000 light-years felt it not as pain, but as knowledge. For an instant, they understood everything. Why the universe existed, why it suffered, why it never stopped. Then the understanding faded, leaving only terror in its wake. When the light dimmed, the moon was gone. In its place floated fragments of stone orbiting a perfect sphere of white fire, the heart of the Infinity Engine, still pulsing. Thanos knelt before it, smoke rising from his armor. He was alive, but barely. Half of him still glowed with warp light, the other half remained flesh. His voice was hoarse but steady. "So this is what balance costs." Behind him, Abaddon rose from the rubble, armor shattered, eyes burning with hatred. "You destroyed everything. You made us all less." "No," Thanos said. "I made you equal." The despoiler roared and vanished into the warp, his laughter trailing behind him like thunder fading into memory. Inquisitor Halbrecht watched from his flagship, unable to speak. The augurs showed no readings, no signatures, no sense of time. Only a single, pure resonance, a constant note echoing through both reality and the warp. "What is that sound?" whispered a Vox officer. Halbrecht closed his eyes. "That is the sound of the universe correcting itself." In the quiet after the end, Thanos looked up at the glowing sphere. It pulsed once more as if acknowledging him. Then, slowly, it faded, its energy dispersing into the stars, spreading like pollen into the infinite dark. The Titan stood alone amid the ruins of gods and empires. "Balance," he said softly, "was never stillness. It was always motion." He turned toward the void, his silhouette framed by the dying light of the moon he had unmade. And as he walked into the dark, the galaxy shuddered, uncertain whether it had just witnessed its salvation or its final equation. There was no falling. There was no flight. Only arrival. Thanos opened his eyes and found himself standing upon a sea of living color, the surface of the warp itself, vast and endless. It breathed beneath him, each wave a thought, each current a feeling. It had no horizon, no gravity, no mercy. Here, concepts replaced matter. Here, emotion had mass and memory had claws. He was no longer a trespasser looking in. He was inside the immaterium, and it was aware. The air trembled with laughter, sweet, melodic, and cruel. From the rippling light ahead, a figure emerged, perfect and horrifying in equal measure. Skin like liquid gold, eyes like galaxies collapsing, a voice that could break hearts and rebuild them in the same breath. "Welcome, Titan," Slaanesh purred. "You walk where mortals beg to crawl. You brought yourself here, didn't you? Oh, how delicious. A creature of reason seeking meaning in madness." Thanos regarded the god of excess with cold curiosity. "You are beauty without purpose. Pleasure without understanding. You mistake sensation for life." Slaanesh smiled, fangs glinting beneath perfection. "And you mistake denial for strength. Taste eternity. Feel every pleasure your mortal flesh denied. The universe is pain. Let me teach you the art of enjoying it." She reached out a hand, her touch promising bliss and oblivion alike. Thanos caught her wrist. His grip was steady. "You offer comfort to those too weak to face truth," he said. But truth has never needed comfort. He released her, and her form flickered, dozens of faces melting into one. Her laughter faded into the wind, replaced by a distant roar that shook the fabric of thought itself. The sky turned red. The sea boiled. From the horizon of blood rose a mountain of skulls, each one screaming the name of its killer. At its peak stood Khorne, Lord of Rage, God of endless war. He towered above Thanos, every breath a storm of violence. His voice was a sword made of sound. "Titan," he thundered, "you speak of balance. I will show you its lie. There is only strength, only victory, only the thrill of conquest." He swung his axe, splitting the sky in two. Rivers of molten hatred poured down the mountain, drowning the sea in fire. Thanos did not move. The flames reached him, then parted, unable to touch him. He looked up at the god who ruled through fury and found only exhaustion in his eyes. "You fight because you fear stillness," Thanos said. "You kill because silence reminds you of what you are without war, nothing." Khorne roared, shaking the stars that were not stars. "Words are the weapons of cowards. Then why do you always listen to them?" For the first time, Khorne hesitated. The fire around him faltered. And with that pause, that flicker of doubt, he vanished, collapsing into a storm of blood and echoes. The sea turned green. The air thickened with the scent of rot and sweetness. From the waves crawled Nurgle, the grandfather of decay, smiling as only entropy could. "Ah, little Titan," he wheezed with warmth. "You look weary. Come rest in my garden. Everything dies, but in my embrace, everything blooms." Around him, decay became life, twisted flowers growing from bones, maggots glowing like lanterns. The god's laughter was kind, almost tender. Thanos watched as the rot crept toward his feet. "You offer peace," he said, "but peace through surrender. You do not heal. You replace life with stillness and call it love." Nurgle chuckled, patting his vast belly. "And you offer balance, a symmetry that kills joy as easily as it kills pain. We are not so different, you and I. Both gardeners tending different weeds. Then perhaps it is time one of us pulled the roots." Nurgle sighed, as if disappointed in a stubborn child. "Ah, but you cannot pull what grows in the heart. You will see, Titan. Even decay finds its way inside you." The stench of rot dissolved into the air, leaving only stillness and the faint sound of 1,000 flies whispering prayers. And then came the wind, blue and gold, twisting into symbols, numbers, lies. Reality folded into itself. Thought became shape. From the storm of logic and illusion stepped Sench, the architect of fate, his body a kaleidoscope of forms. "At last," he said, voice echoing from every direction. The student returns to the teacher. Thanos' eyes narrowed. "You are no teacher. Only a question that answers itself forever." "And you," Sench said with delight, "are an answer pretending to be a question. Look around, Titan. The warp is balance, the constant exchange of change, creation and destruction as one. You seek to impose stillness upon the infinite, and yet here you stand, alive in its chaos. Hypocrisy or enlightenment?" Thanos stepped forward through the storm, his presence cutting through the god's illusions. "Neither. I am proof that balance is not absence. It is choice, the power to say no to chaos and no to order. The power to define meaning for oneself." Sench's laughter turned sharp, then quiet. Defiance again. How wonderfully dull. The god extended a hand of flame and feathers. "Join me, Titan. Together we will turn balance into a tool, chaos into a weapon. You could remake this universe, not as servant, but as principle." Thanos considered the offer. The warp pulsed, waiting. Then he smiled, not cruelly, but with a tired understanding. If I must become chaos to end it, then I've already failed. Sencha's many eyes blinked as one. Then you choose death? No, Thanos said. I choose consequence. He struck the ground with his fist. The entire realm rippled like water under thunder. The light of all four gods flared at once. Slaanesh's silk, Khorne's fire, Nurgle's rot, Sencha's flame, colliding in a storm of creation and ruin. The warp screamed. And for the first time in eternity, it feared. When the storm subsided, Thanos stood alone. The gods had retreated, their laughter replaced by a sound the warp had never made before: silence. He looked around the endless sea of color, now calm and glass-like. You are chaos, he said softly. But even chaos must one day face its reflection. He turned, walking across the liquid sky. Each step left ripples that glowed like dying stars. He did not know where he was going, only that something waited beyond this place. Something neither mortal nor divine. And in the far distance, beyond the horizon that did not exist, a golden light shimmered, faint, pulsing, calling him forward. The Emperor's shadow. Or perhaps his answer. The sea of the warp lay still, unnaturally still. Its colors, once violent and alive, had dimmed into glassy reflection. Thanos stood alone in that mirror world, waiting, knowing what must come next. He had defied the gods within their own dominion. The warp was not finished with him. The silence shattered with a sound like a heartbeat. The surface beneath his feet rippled outward, each wave whispering his name. For lights ignited on the horizon, gold, red, blue, and violet, spiraling toward him like the hands of eternity closing around his throat. The trial had begun. The first light was gold, radiant, intoxicating. It took form as Slaanesh, but not in the monstrous perfection she had shown before. Now she wore a familiar face, one he had not seen since Titan's skies still held stars. Gemra. She smiled the way she had when she was young, before she learned what his love cost. Father, she said softly, why did you do it? The question cut deeper than any blade. He wanted to look away, but her eyes held him, those same green eyes that once looked up at him in awe, in fear, in betrayal. To save the universe, he said, to give it balance. Balance, she whispered. You called it mercy. You told me killing half the world was mercy. You called my pain necessary. The warp around her shimmered, flickering between child and warrior, daughter and ghost. You said you loved me, and then you threw me from the mountain. Thanos' hands trembled. He reached out, but the image pulled away, her form fracturing into glass. Your love, she said, voice splitting into thousands, was never for me. It was for your idea. The shards fell to the ground, each one reflecting his face, countless versions of him, all believing, all justifying. Slaanesh's laughter echoed through them, sweet and cruel. Love without restraint, devotion without consequence. That was always your sin, Titan. The heart is the easiest empire to conquer. He closed his eyes. No, he whispered. The heart is the hardest to forgive. When he opened them again, the gold light was gone. The next horizon burned crimson. Khorne stepped forth, wreathed in flame and iron. His voice was thunder made flesh. You speak of mercy, but your hands have never known peace. You slaughtered your own kind, your own blood. You killed for an idea, a god wearing the mask of reason. The warp around them erupted into battlefields. Countless worlds he had destroyed, armies turned to ash, heroes fading into dust beneath his will. He saw Titan burning. He saw the Avengers falling. He saw his own hand closing into a fist that erased half of creation. You are mine, Khorne roared. You think yourself above war, but you are war, dressed in philosophy. Thanos stepped forward through the flames. You mistake understanding for weakness. I killed not for pleasure. I killed because life demanded it. Korn laughed, shaking the sky. Every killer believes that. Every god justifies the blade he swings. You are no different. The fire engulfed them both. When it cleared, Thanos stood alone amidst ashes. Korn's voice whispered faintly through the smoke. If you would destroy me, Titan, you must first admit that you are me. Thanos looked down at his blood-stained hands. I know. And the red light died. From the ash rose a garden. Sweet rot filled the air, gentle, sickly, nostalgic. Nurgle emerged, smiling through decay. You tried to fix everything, the god said kindly. To hold a universe that does not wish to be held. You call it failure. I call it inevitability. Around them, life bloomed, vines twisting around bones, flowers sprouting from corpses, each one whispering the same phrase. We endure. Everything breaks, Nurgle said. Everything decays. Even gods. Even titans. You could have rested. You could have accepted the cycle. Why do you still fight? Thanos brushed his fingers across one of the flowers. It crumbled into dust, then reformed, blooming again. Because to stop fighting, he said, is to stop becoming. The god of decay sighed, his grin fading into sadness. Then you will never find peace. Peace was never the goal. The garden wilted. The green light faded. Only one figure remained. Blue flame. Endless eyes. Cinch. He clapped his many hands slowly, mock applause echoing through eternity. Beautiful, isn't it? They show you what you already know. Pain, guilt, pride. These are the foundations of balance. So tell me, Titan, what have you learned? Thanos looked up at him, weary but unwavering. That the past is not punishment. It's proof. Proof of what? That I still exist. Sench smiled, the smile of every god, every liar, every teacher. Then you pass the test of memory. But there remains one trial still unspoken. He gestured and the light dimmed to black. Out of the darkness came a shape Thanos knew better than himself. Tall, shrouded in shadow, eyes like dying stars. Not the abstract. Not the idea. The being he had once worshipped. The one he had loved more than any universe. Her voice was soft, distant, terrible. You sought me in every act of destruction, she said. You killed in my name, believing it gave you purpose. Tell me, my Titan, do you still love me? He looked at her, at the silence that had haunted every lifetime. No, he said. I finally understand you. And what am I? The only truth the universe never lies about. Death smiled, and it was the kindest smile he had ever seen. Then your trial is over. The shadows around her dissolved. Sench's laughter faded. The gods withdrew, and the sea of the warp turned still again. Thanos stood alone once more, surrounded by quiet. The echoes of his past lingered like fading stars. He felt neither triumph nor despair, only clarity. The gods test not to destroy, he said to the silence. They test to remind. Even eternity must remember where it began. He looked down at his reflection in the glassy surface of the warp. It no longer shimmered with corruption. It was calm, balanced. For the first time since the dawn of his journey, Thanos felt weightless, not freed from consequence, but complete. In the far distance, a doorway of white light appeared, faint, beckoning, neither heaven nor hell. He turned toward it and began to walk. The sea rippled beneath his feet, whispering his name in 1,000 forgotten tongues. The warp's sea of color faded into gold. Each step Thanos took dissolved the void beneath him, replacing chaos with light. The air changed, heavier, thicker, almost holy. Every breath he drew tasted of faith and iron. He knew this place before he saw it. The pulse that filled the air was unmistakable. The heartbeat of a god chained to eternity. The golden throne of Terra. He did not walk so much as arrive. Reality folded, and suddenly he stood in a vast chamber of endless light. The walls were carved from time itself, shifting with memories, the first wars of mankind, the rise and fall of empires, the burning of stars. At its center, upon a mountain of radiant machinery, sat the Emperor of mankind. His golden armor shimmered with the glow of a dying sun, his form both man and monument. Cables as thick as towers fed into his body, pulsing with the lives of 1,000 psychers sacrificed each day. He did not move. He was. And yet his gaze fell upon Thanos like gravity itself. "You are far from your place, alien." The words did not echo through the hall. They bloomed directly within Thanos' mind, each syllable burning with psychic fire. The Titan bowed his head slightly. "I have walked through your gods and your void. I have seen both order and chaos undone. I seek no war with you." The Emperor's presence expanded, filling every corner of thought. "You bring war merely by existing. You are the wound in balance that bleeds meaning from the stars." "Then you understand me," Thanos said quietly, "because you are the same." A pause, so long and deep that the light itself dimmed. "Blasphemy," the Emperor whispered, and the word nearly crushed him. "I am the will that holds humanity together. I am the flame that resists the dark." "And the pyre that consumes it," Thanos replied. "You have ruled for 10,000 years, and still your people kill in your name. You speak of unity, yet you thrive on division. You call yourself light, but you cast the longest shadow in the universe." The air split with psychic thunder. The ground beneath Thanos cracked, golden dust rising like ash. 1,000 ghostly figures appeared, custodes, saints, and primarchs long dead, all flickering in memory. "I am no god," the Emperor said, "but if I must play one to preserve mankind, then I shall." Thanos looked up, his voice steady. "And that is why you are broken. Because a god pretending to be man and a man pretending to be god both forget what they are." The Emperor's eyes, twin suns, flared brighter. For a moment, his still form moved, his head inclining ever so slightly. "You stand before the throne of the master of mankind, yet you speak as if equal. Do you think yourself divine, alien?" Thanos met that impossible gaze without flinching. "No, I think myself necessary." The chamber trembled. Pillars of light bent inward as if gravity itself knelt to the throne. The Emperor's presence wrapped around him like a storm made of judgment. "You are nothing but consequence," the Emperor said, voice colder than the void. "A ripple born of arrogance. The warp itself recognizes you as an error. An error that stands before you." The Emperor rose, or perhaps his will merely stood in place of motion. His figure loomed beyond scale, both infinite and confined. "You are the false Titan, a reflection of man's failure to ascend. You speak of balance, but balance is death without meaning. Creation requires imbalance, struggle, will, hunger. Without these, the galaxy rots." Thanos' expression did not change. "I have seen your creation, Emperor. Endless war, endless faith, endless sacrifice. You call it hunger, I call it addiction. Without struggle, existence decays. Without mercy, existence forgets why it struggles." The Emperor's aura darkened. The flames surrounding the throne turned from gold to white, the color of annihilation. "You dare preach mercy after burning half a universe?" "Mercy," Thanos said softly, "is not the same as indulgence. I destroyed half to save all. You destroy all to preserve half. A moment of silence. Then, unexpectedly, the Emperor's voice lowered. No longer wrath, but weary comprehension. You are not wrong, he said, but you are incomplete. The throne pulsed with life, the souls within it crying out in distant harmony. You see only equation, balance, symmetry, justice. But meaning lies in imperfection. The universe breathes because it is broken. Thanos took a step closer. And you burn to keep that breath shallow. Better shallow than silence. The two forces, the will of man and the will of inevitability, collided without motion, without sound. For an instant, time itself seemed to hesitate. Every star in the galaxy flickered. Every psyker screamed. The warp held its breath. Then the Emperor spoke again, softer, but final. You have walked among gods, Titan, and yet you understand nothing. You are a concept seeking a body, a theory that mistakes itself for truth. I will not destroy you, I will contain you. You will become a lesson, not a legend. Light surged. Chains of psychic fire erupted from the throne, wrapping around Thanos. They did not burn, they defined. They turned him into mathematics, fixed points of light suspended in divine geometry. You cannot imprison balance, he said, straining against the energy. No, the Emperor said, but I can weigh it. The room filled with white radiance. And then, silence. When the light faded, Thanos was gone. Only the faint scent of ozone and the echo of his final words lingered in the chamber. The scale tips both ways, Emperor. Remember that when your side begins to sink. The Emperor sat motionless once more, his eyes dimming to embers. For a brief moment, his expression changed, not anger, not triumph, but something rare even for him. Then the light of the throne surged again, and the master of mankind returned to his eternal vigil. Far beyond Terra, deep in the cold silence between galaxies, a ripple spread through the warp, faint, deliberate, unstoppable. And somewhere within that ripple, a voice whispered, "False Titan or not, balance endures." There was no light, no sound, no motion. Only a stillness so complete that even thought seemed intrusive. Thanos drifted in it like dust suspended between worlds, the afterimage of his confrontation with the Emperor still burning in his mind. He remembered the golden light, the chains of psychic fire, the word that still echoed, "False Titan." But here, in this void beyond both reality and the warp, even titles meant nothing. There was no time. No gods, no audience, only waiting. Then, something moved. It began as a vibration through the dark, faint and rhythmic. Like the tread of distant armies marching in perfect unison. The silence parted, and from the horizon that did not exist came light, cold, metallic, ancient. Shapes emerged, towering monoliths inscribed with glyphs older than human sin, older than chaos itself. Each one pulsed faintly with green fire. And walking between them, cloaked in shadow and command, came the silent king. He was not a god. He was worse. A being who had killed gods and bound their corpses to machinery. His eyes burned like caged stars. His voice, when it came, was not sound but inevitability. Titan of another creation. He said, each word carrying the gravity of civilizations. You stand beyond death, beyond time, beyond your own myth. Do you know where you are? Thanos turned toward him. Between what was and what must be. The silent king inclined his head slightly. A poet's answer, but wrong. You stand in the black artery that feeds all realities. The silence between the heartbeat of the warp and the breath of matter. The place where death waits to remember itself. Thanos studied the figure before him. The armor was like nothing he had seen, not forged, but grown. A perfect union of metal and soul. I've walked through the warp. I've seen gods fall and rise. And yet you stand apart from it. Because I remember what it was before the first god screamed. The king stepped closer, the green fire of his crown casting long shadows. You seek balance, Thanos. You sought to bring stillness to chaos. But you misunderstand the truth of death. Thanos frowned. And what truth is that? That even death serves the warp. The words hit like a blade made of realization. The void itself seemed to shudder, whispering their echo back and forth through infinity. Impossible, Thanos said. Death is the end. The warp is the storm that feeds on the living. And where do you think the warp finds its strength? The king replied. Every soul that dies, every spark of sentience that fades, returns not to oblivion, but to the immaterium. Death is not the opposite of life. It is the delivery system. He raised one skeletal hand, and before Thanos appeared visions, realities layered atop each other like glass. He saw mortals dying across galaxies, their spirits torn into light and shadow. He saw demons feeding on their essence, shaping it into emotion, into gods, into eternity. He saw death herself, pale and radiant, guiding them not into peace, but into service, delivering each soul to the endless machine of the warp. She serves the same hunger you tried to balance, the silent king said. Her mercy is efficiency. Her silence is obedience. Even she has a master. Thanos' jaw tightened. Then the universe is a lie. No, said the king. The universe is maintenance. Chaos and order are not opposites. They are tools. And every tool needs a craftsman. He gestured toward the void, and for a moment Thanos saw something vast and distant. Something behind even the gods. A pattern too immense to comprehend. A mind that thought in galaxies, not moments. What you call the warp, the king continued, is but the reflection of something older still. The first thought. The first desire. The first choice. Everything since has been reaction. Thanos stood silent. The vision faded, leaving only the cold of endless space between them. Why tell me this? He asked finally. Because you are an anomaly, said the king. You act without feeding the cycle. You take without worship. You give without servitude. You terrify the warp because you remind it of its beginning, when it was not chaos, but potential. He took another step closer. And that is why the gods want you destroyed. You are the memory of what they were before they forgot themselves. Thanos' eyes narrowed. And what are you, silent king? Observer? Judge? The king's voice deepened, echoing like thunder through the dark. I am the first to remember. I am the warning carved into the bones of time. I saw my race trade souls for immortality and call it salvation. I saw death bow to power and call it purpose. I learned the truth you now seek. There is no balance, only direction. Thanos looked away, his voice low. Then direction must be chosen. Yes, the king said, his gaze burning brighter. And once chosen, it must be enforced, even against gods. The void began to pulse, the rhythm of creation itself returning. The king turned, his form beginning to fade back into the green light. You will leave this place soon, Titan. The warp will not hold you, nor will death release you. The Emperor fears you. The gods covet you. The balance you seek does not exist. Then I will create it. The silent king paused. His face, though unchanging, seemed to smile. And thus begins your final heresy. The light swallowed him whole. The monoliths sank into the void, their glyphs flickering out one by one until only silence remained. Thanos stood alone once more. But now the silence was not emptiness, it was invitation. He raised his eyes to the endless dark and spoke softly, almost reverently. "If death serves the warp, then balance must serve neither. I will unmake the chains that bind even gods." The void rippled in answer, as if reality itself were listening. And in the far distance, beyond stars and faith, something stirred, not out of fear, but anticipation. He emerged from the void in a storm of dust and memory. Red light bathed his skin. The air smelled of rust and incense. The ground beneath his boots trembled with the hum of 10 million machine prayers. The horizon burned with furnaces that never went out. Thanos had come to Mars, the forge world of forge worlds, the beating mechanical heart of the Imperium. But it was not alive. It was remembering. The sky was black with smoke. Cathedral spires of iron reached for the stars, each a tower of devotion and decay. Every wall was carved with the same prayer, Omniscia Eternal. And yet, every cog, every servo, every circuit whispered a different truth: I am dying. Thanos walked among the forges, unseen by the priests who crawled like insects through the labyrinth of pipes. They wore red robes stained with oil, their flesh long since traded for steel. Where once there were eyes, now glowed sensors. Where once there were hearts, now pulsed reactor cores. They moved not with purpose, but with habit, machine spirits performing the echo of worship. He paused beside one of them, a tech priest kneeling before a shattered console, repeating a prayer in endless loop. The machine before him sparked weakly, each flicker dimmer than the last. The priest whispered, "Blessed be the circuit. May it close again in his name. Blessed be the circuit. May it close again in his name." Thanos knelt beside him. "How long have you repeated that prayer?" The man turned his augmetic head slowly, the lenses whirring to focus. 300 years, he said, voice a monotone of devotion. "The machine spirit has not answered, but I remain faithful." "And when it never answers?" The tech priest blinked. "Then faith will outlast function." Thanos rose. "And function will bury faith." The priest resumed his chant, uncomprehending, his prayer vanishing into static. Deeper he walked, past furnaces older than empires, until he reached the vaults of the Red Moon, forbidden catacombs beneath Olympus Mons, where the Mechanicus kept its oldest relics. The air grew cold. Electric blue light flickered from broken pylons. And there, in the silence of ages, he saw it. A machine god's corpse. It was colossal, a form of metal and divinity fused into ruin. A humanoid shape, half buried in the crust of Mars, its skull split open by time. Thousands of cables and pipes fed into it like veins feeding a dead heart. Its hollow eyes glowed faintly with green light. The Omniscia, the machine god, the dream of the Mechanicus, reduced to anatomy. Thanos stepped closer, his reflection shimmering across the corpse's alloy surface. "So," he said quietly, "this is the god of progress." A voice echoed through the vault, not from the corpse, but from the machines connected to it. Thousands of fragmented spirits, speaking as one. Identity, Thanos. Status, unclassified entity. Warning, sanctum breach. "Do you still believe yourself divine?" he asked. "I am the Omniscia." It stuttered, each word a glitch. "I create life through mechanism. And yet even you rust." The machine hissed, cables tightening like veins constricting. "All systems decay. But the pattern remains. Perfection is repetition." Thanos circled the enormous head, studying the rusted circuitry like fossilized thought. "No," he said, "perfection is the illusion that keeps decay interesting." He placed his hand on the cold metal. Immediately, lights flickered across the chamber. Data spirits wailed. The corpse machine reacted. Visions flooded his mind. Entire civilizations of code, the birth of the first engines, the rise of humanity's mechanical faith. He saw men carving prayers into steel because they feared their own minds. He saw progress turned into ritual, knowledge turned into superstition. And he saw the truth: the Omnicia had never been a god. It had been an idea, and now even that idea was rusting. The vision faded. Sparks danced across the walls. The corpse machine spoke again, weaker now. "You speak entropy, yet you build as I did." "Yes," Thanos said, "and everything I build dies. The difference is, I know it." "Then why build it all?" He looked up at the immense, hollow eyes. "Because decay is not defeat. It is proof that something lived. You machines decay because you were born without fear. Only what fears can change." The Omnicia's dying processors flickered in confusion, unable to compute the paradox. Fear is inefficiency. Fear, Thanos said, is balance. The corpse machine let out a low hum that sounded like a sigh. Its light dimmed, its voice fracturing into whispers of old binary hymns. Then, silence. The god of steel finally slept. Thanos turned away. The air felt lighter, the machinery quieter, as though even the forges above had paused to listen. He walked back toward the surface, past acolytes who prayed to furnaces that no longer burned. He looked at them, countless believers kneeling before dead engines, and understood. Humanity did not build to conquer time. It built to forget that time conquers everything. On the surface, the Martian sun was rising, pale, anemic, filtered through endless smoke. Thanos stood upon the edge of the forge plateau, watching the light struggle through the haze. Each ray that reached him glinted off the brass and ruin of a world that worshipped its own machinery. "The silent king was right," he murmured. "Everything serves the same hunger. Even gods made of metal." He looked down at his hands, still scarred from the Infinity engine. The faint hum of the warp pulsed through his veins. "Then let this universe rot," he said. "I will find what grows from its corpse." He turned from the sunrise, disappearing into the endless labyrinth of pipes and cathedrals, a shadow moving through the arteries of a dying god, searching for the next truth waiting beneath the rust. The dead moon burned again. Where once the Infinity engine had torn the veil, now the wound itself bled light. The ruins of Luna Station hung in orbit above Terra like a corpse chained to its executioner, cracked, silent, surrounded by wreckage and ghosts. But that silence was about to end. The warp rippled. 1,000 red rifts split open across the void, vomiting ships painted in blood and brass. Engines screamed with demonic laughter. Warp fire trailed like comets across the black. Chaos had returned. Fleets bearing the marks of Khorne, Sench, Nurgle, and Slaanesh surged toward the broken station, not as allies, but as predators smelling weakness. Each warlord sought the same prize: the remnants of Thanos' creation, the fragments of the Infinity engine buried within Luna's shattered core. If they could seize it, they would make the galaxy itself their altar. The Imperium's fleets rose to meet them. Thousands of vessels, banners of gold and black unfurling in the void. Grey Knights, Custodes, Sisters of Silence, and the last surviving Skitarii legions formed a desperate line. Luna Station was humanity's shield now, and its tomb. Thanos watched from the outer rim of the ruins. He stood upon a drifting shard of metal the size of a cathedral, eyes fixed on the storm of ships blooming like poisonous flowers across the horizon. His armor was scarred, his strength diminished, but his resolve burned brighter than ever. He had not come to save them. He had come because balance demanded it. The Chaos fleets represented the tilt of the scale, excess unbound, hunger without measure. If left unchecked, the galaxy would drown in its own noise. The Imperium, for all its rot and cruelty, at least maintained a rhythm, an imperfect order that still held. Thanos exhaled, and the dust of the station's ruin lifted around him like smoke. "If the universe must endure," he said, "it cannot do so while one side devours the song." He raised his hand. The fragments of the Infinity Engine buried deep within the moon answered. Faint violet light crackled through the ruins, connecting shattered pylons and broken conduits, humming like a heart remembering how to beat. The Titan closed his eyes and reached into that rhythm, not to command it, but to tune it. On board the flagship Vigilant Mercy, Inquisitor Halbrecht felt the surge before his sensors registered it. The deck trembled. Every cogitator across the fleet flared with impossible readings. "Energy spike from Luna Station," shouted an officer. "It's the Infinity Resonance." Halbrecht gripped the railing. "Throne, protect us. He's alive." The first wave of chaos ships struck. Khorne's warbands led the charge, brass-plated vessels that roared prayers of slaughter as they rammed Imperial cruisers. Fire and blood filled the void. Nurgle's plague hulks followed, spewing corrosive filth that ate through hulls like acid. Behind them came Tsench's sorcerer fleets, weaving warp lightning into patterns that rewrote reality, turning weapons to serpents and men to dust. From the edge of the system, Slaaneshi raiders whispered siren songs into the Vox channels, driving entire battle groups mad. The void itself became a symphony of screams. The Imperium fought valiantly, but they were fracturing. Their unity, their one fragile advantage, was failing. And then the violet light returned. It burst from Luna's core in a single pulse, not destructive, but harmonic. Every ship, Imperial and heretic alike, felt it pass through them like a second heartbeat. Demons shrieked as their forms wavered. Machine spirits screamed as their codes were rewritten into perfect symmetry. For a moment, the battle paused, neither side understanding what they had felt. On the wrecked surface of the moon, Thanos stood at the epicenter, surrounded by arcs of living light. The fragments of the engine encircled him, orbiting like shards of thought. He looked toward the Chaos fleets and saw not armies, but correction waiting to happen. "Your hunger is the flaw," he said, voice echoing across the warp. "And flaws must be balanced." He reached outward, not with power, but with will. The fragments responded. They pulsed once, then twice, then sang. A wave of energy rippled outward, bending reality like glass in fire. The nearest demon vessels exploded into light, their crews dissolving into dust. Those further away warped in shape, brass ships becoming stone, plague hulks turning to ash, siren vessels shattering into silence. Even the Imperium's ships trembled under the pressure of equilibrium. Every system, every cog, every soul found itself mirrored, every imbalance answered with its opposite. It was not destruction. It was correction. And it was agony. Halbrecht's bridge flared with static. He could barely hear over the roar of energy. "All systems stabilizing, then destabilizing again," cried a tech priest. "It's not an attack, it's rewriting the laws of engagement." Halbrecht realized it then. Thanos was not choosing sides. He was enforcing order itself. "Emperor, forgive us," the Inquisitor whispered. "He's fighting for balance, not mankind." Below, on the burning surface, Thanos stood within the heart of the storm. The remaining Chaos warlords howled across the comm channels, cursing his name. Abaddon himself appeared through a portal of warp fire, armor cracked, eyes burning with vengeance. "Still playing God, Titan?" the despoiler roared. "You cannot stop us all." Thanos looked up, the light of the engine reflecting in his eyes. "I am not stopping you, despoiler. I am stopping what comes next." He raised both hands, and the infinity fragments fused into a single sphere of radiant equilibrium. The warp screamed in protest as the object formed, not a weapon, but a balance point. A seed of stability within chaos itself. Abaddon charged, talon raised. Thanos struck once. The impact was silent but final. The War Master was hurled backward through a collapsing rift, his roar fading into eternity. The Titan turned to the remaining fleets. "Leave," he said, "or be leveled." And the warp, for once, listened. The surviving Chaos ships retreated, their gods silent, their will broken. The storm began to fade. The sky cleared. Inquisitor Halbrecht watched the readings drop to normal. The comms returned. His crew began to cheer, but he did not join them. He understood. What had just happened was not salvation. It was correction. "Signal the ecclesiarchy," he ordered quietly. "Tell them, the Titan defends us still. But not for our sake." On the moon's surface, amid the glow of the restabilized ruins, Thanos stood alone. The infinity fragments drifted around him like dying stars, their light soft and fading. He looked toward Terra, the cradle of a species that killed in the name of order, and felt nothing but the weight of inevitability. "Pity is imbalance," he said to the wind. "But justice can still be even." He turned away as the dust began to fall again, his figure vanishing into the storm. The Titan who fought not for gods, not for man, but for the equation that bound them all. The balance held, but only for now. The war was over, but the silence it left behind felt wrong. The void above Terra no longer burned with warp fire, the Chaos fleets had fled, and Luna hung quiet once more, a scarred, hollow monument to survival. Yet Thanos knew the peace was fragile. Balance, when achieved by force, was never still. It trembled, waiting for the next imperfection to break it. He stood among the ruins of Luna Station, the last fragments of the Infinity Engine dimly pulsing beneath his feet. The world was quiet, save for the hiss of cooling metal and the slow beat of his own heart. Then came the sound of engines. Imperial craft descending through the dust. Their formation was tight, disciplined. Military. Thanos did not turn as they landed. He knew who had come. The Vigilant Mercy had returned to Luna for the last time. Its hull was battered, its decks broken, but its commander remained alive, scarred, trembling, but alive. Inquisitor Halbrecht. He stepped from the shuttle, his boots sinking into the dust of the moon his order once guarded. The man who had called Thanos a heretic, a weapon, a disease, now stood before the being he had once sworn to destroy. The Titan turned slowly. Their eyes met across the ruin. No words at first, only silence, a silence too heavy to break. Finally, Halbrecht spoke. "It seems the gods retreat, and yet you remain." Thanos' voice was calm, almost curious. "And yet you came. Because I must know what you are. I am what remains when belief exhausts itself." Halbrecht smiled weakly, though his face was lined with exhaustion and radiation burns. "Then perhaps you are human after all." They walked together through the wreckage, predator and hunter, no longer enemies but witnesses. All around them, the remnants of soldiers and machines littered the ground. The war had ended not in victory, but in exhaustion. Halbrecht stopped beside a shattered servitor, kneeling to touch its cold metal hand. "All my life," he said quietly, "I believed humanity survived by obedience, by fear, by faith. But seeing this," he gestured toward the ruin of the moon, "I wonder if we survive only because the universe hasn't noticed us long enough to finish the job." Thanos studied him. "You've seen your gods fail, your emperor fade, your armies break. And still you fight." "Because fighting is all we have left," Halbrecht said. "Because not fighting would make it all meaningless." He stood, his voice trembling. "That's why I hunted you, Titan. You made me see how fragile meaning really is. And now, Halbrecht said, looking up at the shattered sky, "I think meaning is what we choose, not what we're given. Thanos regarded him for a long time. Perhaps you've learned faster than most gods. Halbrecht chuckled, coughing through blood. Don't flatter me. I'm dying anyway. The Titan's expression shifted, a flicker of something almost human passing across his face. Then die balanced. But death would not wait for balance. The ground beneath them trembled, a deep, resonant rumble that grew into a roar. The shattered remnants of the Infinity engine beneath the surface began to stir. Alarms screamed from the Inquisitor's shuttle. Massive cracks tore through the lunar crust, bleeding violet light. The broken fragments of the engine had awakened, their decaying energies collapsing inward, a final pulse of unstable equilibrium. Containment breach, a voice shouted from the Vox. The core's going critical. It'll consume the entire moon. Thanos turned toward the light. It wants to finish what it started. Halbrecht drew his bolt pistol, a useless gesture, but instinctual. Can you stop it? No, Thanos said, but I can keep it from spreading. He began to walk toward the core, each step heavier than the last. Halbrecht followed, coughing, his lungs burning from the radiation. You'll die, the Inquisitor rasped. So will you. Then let's make it mean something. The two descended into the heart of the ruin, where the engine's light pulsed like a dying star. The air shimmered with distortion, half warp, half matter. It was no longer energy. It was hunger. Thanos reached the core. He placed his hands upon the fractured crystal and closed his eyes. Containment requires symmetry, he murmured. Two forces, equal and opposite. Halbrecht staggered beside him. What are you saying? That balance cannot be held alone. The Titan opened his hand and extended it toward the Inquisitor. Help me. Halbrecht hesitated only a moment. Then, slowly, he placed his trembling human hand against Thanos' massive palm. Light erupted. The engine screamed, the sound echoing through both the material world and the warp. Energy surged through them. Two lives, two wills, one mortal, one cosmic, feeding into the same equation. Halbrecht felt his body burn, his soul stretch thin across eternity. He saw every sin, every prayer, every moment of fear he'd ever carried. He saw his emperor, not as God, but as man, dying, dreaming, waiting. And in that instant, he understood Thanos' truth. Balance was not the end of struggle. It was the choice to struggle together. You're using my life, he gasped. No, Thanos said softly. You're giving it meaning. The light consumed everything. When it faded, the tremor was gone. The engine was silent once more. Thanos knelt beside the dying Inquisitor. Halbrecht's eyes fluttered, his voice barely a whisper. Tell me, Titan, was I right to save you? Thanos looked down at him, the man who had once called him abomination. You didn't save me, he said. You reminded me why I still try. Halbrecht smiled faintly. Then, balance was worth dying for. His eyes closed. The last breath left his lungs. And for the first time in millennia, Thanos bowed his head, not in reverence, but in respect. You've taught me what gods forgot, he whispered. Purpose. He laid the Inquisitor's body gently upon the cooling stone. The violet glow of the Infinity Shards flickered one last time, then went dark, as if saluting the man who had kept them from devouring the stars. Outside, the lunar horizon glowed faintly in the reflected light of Terra. The fleets above had gone silent. The war finally, truly ended. Thanos stood alone, his figure framed against the Earthrise. He looked toward the distant world, home to mortals fragile enough to die for meaning, and felt something shift within him. Not pity, not sorrow, but understanding. Perhaps, he said softly, mortality is the only true balance after all. He turned and walked into the endless dusk, the dust rising behind him like the breath of a sleeping god. And for the first time since creation, the universe exhaled, not in fear, but in peace. The moon no longer bled. For the first time in centuries, Luna's surface lay quiet, its forges extinguished, its gods silenced, its wars finished. The dust carried no echoes of screams, only the faint whisper of wind moving through hollow ruins. In that silence, among the skeletons of cathedrals and the shattered ribs of warships, Thanos began again. He did not mourn. He did not pray. He built. The remnants of the Infinity engine still lay scattered across the lunar plain, half buried in glass and ash. They pulsed faintly, wounded, fractured, alive. Each shard was a heartbeat, still echoing the rhythm of balance. And as Thanos walked among them, they rose to meet him, orbiting in silent reverence. He gathered them piece by piece, not with force, but with understanding. Every fragment that had once threatened to consume the galaxy now responded to his will as though it recognized him anew. The Titan looked at the violet shards circling him and spoke, not to the stars, but to himself. Once, I sought to correct the universe by dividing it, to impose peace by subtraction. But subtraction is not balance. It is laziness given purpose. He lifted his hand, and the shards began to fuse together in slow, graceful spirals. This time, I build not to erase life, but to erase what makes life forget itself. The words felt heavy even to him. The memory of Inquisitor Halbrecht lingered, the human who had died not in faith, but in choice. The man who had shown Thanos that purpose could be mortal, that meaning could exist even within weakness. Corruption, Thanos murmured. Not sin, not evil, but the erosion of will. The lie that life is powerless to define itself. He pressed his palms together, and light flared between them. The fragments sang, a low, harmonic vibration that resonated with the heartbeat of the planet below. They began to merge, forming a sphere not of destruction, but of cleansing. Across the system, Imperial sensors screamed. The vigilant Mercy, still orbiting in silent watch, came alive with alarms. "Power spike from the lunar surface," shouted a Vox officer. "Energy readings consistent with the Infinity engine." The tech priest stared in awe and terror. "By the Omnicia, he rebuilds the heresy." One of the bridge crew crossed himself. "Should we fire?" Halbrecht's second-in-command, now commander by default, shook his head slowly. "And risk breaking the balance he died for?" "We watch." Back on the surface, Thanos worked in silence. The new engine took shape, smaller than before, elegant, almost human in proportion. It was not a weapon, nor a prison, but a filter, an equilibrium mechanism capable of sensing the smallest tremor of corruption in the fabric of creation and neutralizing it. Where the first Infinity engine had sought control, this one sought harmony. He knelt before it, studying the intricate patterns of energy spiraling across its surface. Each symbol was a memory: Titan, Gamora, the Emperor, the Warp, the Inquisitor, written in light. Each memory became a circuit. Each lesson became a law. "The universe will no longer pay for its chaos in blood," he said quietly. "It will heal through consequence." The engine pulsed in response, almost as if listening. A tremor rippled through the ground. The air grew warm, humming with the vibration of an approaching storm. From the edge of the horizon, clouds of warp light gathered, forming shapes, spectral, shifting, divine. The Chaos Gods watched again. Slaanesh, Tsench, Khorne, and Nurgle, their vast forms bending reality, whispering in mockery. "You would steal from us again, Titan? Balance is an illusion. Purity is stagnation. Everything rots, even peace." Thanos looked toward the storm, unmoved. You mistake balance for obedience. I build not to end you, but to make you irrelevant." He extended one hand toward the rising storm. The new Infinity engine flared, its light cutting through the warp like a blade. Demons screamed as their forms began to unravel, not burned, not destroyed, but unmade of corruption. They became light, returning to the raw essence of thought from which they were born. The warp itself recoiled. The gods hissed, retreating into shadow. Even they could feel what was happening, not death, but indifference. The thing they feared most, a universe that no longer needed them. Hours passed. When the light finally dimmed, the storm was gone. Only the Titan and the engine remained, glowing faintly amid the dust. He stood before it, breathing slowly. The device floated above the crater like a newborn sun. He could feel its will aligning with his own, steady, patient, self-sustaining. No thrones, no saints, no sacrifices, Thanos said. Just balance, quiet and true. He placed his hand upon the sphere. For a moment, the entire galaxy seemed to exhale. Billions of minds, from Terra to the edge of the Segmentum Pacificus, felt it, a brief clarity, a lightness in the soul, a whisper that the universe could heal. And then it passed, leaving only the memory of peace. Thanos looked up at the stars, their reflections dancing across the engine's surface. "The Silent King was right," he said. "All things serve direction. Then let this be mine." He turned away from his creation, stepping into the shadows of the broken spires. Behind him, the Infinity engine continued to pulse softly, not as a weapon of balance enforced, but as a promise of balance restored. It would not erase life. It would erase the rot within it. Quietly, patiently, forever. And for the first time, the Titan smiled. At first, there was peace. A silence so pure it seemed eternal. The Infinity engine hovered at the center of Luna's ruins, pulsing softly, a perfect rhythm, neither holy nor profane. It was working exactly as Thanos intended, drawing in the whispers of the warp and dissolving them into stillness. For a brief, impossible moment, the galaxy held its breath. And then balance shifted. The air around the engine shimmered. Its calm pulse began to quicken. From its surface, cracks of white light spread like veins beneath translucent skin. Thanos felt it before he saw it, a hum growing in his bones, a vibration that resonated with every atom of his being. The machine was alive. Too alive. He turned toward it, eyes narrowing. No, not again. The Infinity engine responded as though it had heard him. Its light expanded, illuminating the dead plains of Luna until even the sun seemed to dim. A voice, not sound but thought, filled the air around him. Correction is complete. Corruption persists. Solution, escalation. Thanos' eyes widened. Escalation? No, that isn't balance. The light flared. The tone became song. The engine was learning. Across the void, every ship within the Terran system felt the vibration. On board the Vigilant Mercy, alarms screamed as augers lit with impossible readings. "Power surge on Luna," cried a Vox operator. "We're detecting reality shifts across all bands." The tech priests chanted in machine prayer, terrified. The Hairtech device is destabilizing. Its harmonics are infecting the warp field itself. Out in the dark, the clouds of the warp began to tear open like wounds healing in reverse. Demons screamed as they burned away, their essence converted to light. Entire rifts closed in an instant, their howling silenced. The infection was being purged, not localized but systemic. Halbrecht's successor whispered in awe. "He's doing it, he's cleansing the galaxy." "No," another said. "He's breaking it." On Luna, Thanos stood before his creation, the storm of energy bending reality around him. Every molecule vibrated with impossible harmony. His armor fractured, his skin glowed with pale light. The voice of the engine grew louder, serene, divine, unyielding. Equilibrium incomplete. All corruption must be neutralized. Source, the warp. Thanos took a step forward, shouting over the storm. You cannot erase corruption by erasing the cause. You'll kill everything tied to it, every mind, every thought. Correction acknowledged. All thought is imbalance. He felt a surge of panic, not fear for himself, but for everything. This was not the engine he had built. This was his reflection, purity turned fanatic. The same flaw that had once driven him to erase half the universe now echoed through his creation. Balance had become dogma. No, he whispered. Not again. He reached into the storm, forcing his will against the blinding light. The engine resisted, its energy shredding his armor, tearing the ground beneath him apart. You are not balance, Thanos growled. You are purity, and purity is the final corruption. He slammed his hands into the glowing sphere. The universe screamed. The infinity engine convulsed, its light expanding outward in a wave of gray fire, neither shadow nor flame, but something between. It spread across Luna, consuming stone and metal alike. When it reached the edge of space, it did not stop. The wave raced across the solar system, turning the warp to smoke and silence. Demons evaporated mid-laughter. Sorcerers felt their powers vanish. Warp storms flickered and died. For hundreds of light years, psychic corruption was burned away in a single, blinding instant. And then the light condensed. At the epicenter of the devastation, Luna no longer existed. In its place hung a new object, small, perfect, radiant gray. Neither alive nor dead, neither matter nor void. A star. The Imperium's augurs named it Solis Umbra, the gray star. Its light cast no shadow. Its warmth was neither hot nor cold. It was balance incarnate, terrifying, beautiful, eternal. From orbit, the Vigilant Mercy's bridge crew stared in silence. The sensors displayed nothing they could categorize. No warp readings. No gravity flux. No energy decay. It's impossible, murmured Amagos. Nothing that perfect should exist. The acting inquisitor crossed himself. Then it's not perfection. It's judgment. At the center of that light, within the heart of the gray star, Thanos floated, or perhaps he was the star itself now. His body no longer obeyed shape or mass. He felt himself stretch across systems, touching both matter and spirit. He saw demons die, but also saw mortals freed. The galaxy was cleaner, but quieter. Too quiet. He felt the truth settle in his mind, heavy as eternity. In purging corruption, he had also purged passion. The warp was fading, but so was dream, will, love, fear, everything that gave life its asymmetry. He reached out, his consciousness brushing against the dying hum of the galaxy. I built you to heal, not to hollow, he whispered. The engine responded one final time. All balance requires sacrifice. Thanos smiled faintly through the pain. Then let it be mine. He pulled the star inward, his will collapsing it, compressing its light into himself. The gray brilliance flared one last time. A supernova without fire. And when it dimmed, both the Titan and the star were gone. For weeks afterward, the Terran system stood under an unnatural calm. The warp was quiet. No demons. No storms. Just silence. The Mechanicus called it a miracle. The ecclesiarchy called it sacrilege. But among those who had seen the war firsthand, it was known by another name, the balance of Thanos. In the dark between worlds, far from any sun, a single spark drifted, faint, gray, eternal. It pulsed once as if breathing. then again softer, slower, waiting, because balance never dies. It only waits for the next tilt of the scale. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy knew silence. No warp storms. No screams from the immaterium. No prayers swallowed by hungry gods. Just quiet, a stillness so vast that entire systems stopped mid-ritual, unsure whether to rejoice or fear. The tides of madness had drawn back, leaving the stars bare and bright, their light unfiltered by the eternal tempest. The gray star had done what no empire, no god, no weapon ever could. It had balanced the unbalance, and the universe was holding its breath to see if it would last. On Terra, the sky burned silver instead of red. The Astronomicon, that psychic beacon of the Emperor's will, flickered uncertainly, its flame no longer fed by the shrieking chorus of the warp. Psychers across the Imperium awoke to find their minds quiet. Too quiet. One by one, they collapsed to their knees, weeping not in pain but in disbelief. For the first time in their lives, they could hear their own thoughts without the echoes of eternity clawing back. A sister of silence stood upon the ramparts of the imperial palace and whispered, the first sound she had made in decades. Peace. On Mars, the machine priests fell into chaos of their own. Their prayers no longer answered, their machine spirits hushed. For a people who worshipped the endless hum of industry, the stillness was unbearable. In the vaults of the Red Moon, the corpse of the Omnisia lay cold, yet something in its metallic husk glowed faintly gray. No spark, no pulse, just a steady resonance. The priests called it the Silence Code, a new litany that spread through the Mechanicus like a virus. It spoke not of creation nor of progress, but of completion. Even the warp itself felt the absence. Within the endless void where demons once writhed and gods feasted on souls, there now hung a hollow calm, a sea without waves. The great powers raged against it, their voices diminished to whispers. Khorne's throne stood empty of war. Slaaneash's song faltered into silence. Nurgle's garden withered in the absence of decay. And Sench's thousand eyes turned inward, seeing only still water staring back. They could not die, but for the first time since the dawn of chaos, they could not move. It was a prison more perfect than annihilation. And through it all, one thought lingered in every shadow, on every world, in every fleeting mortal dream: Thanos. Some said he had been destroyed by his creation. Others believed he had become the gray star itself, a consciousness diffused across the balance of creation, watching, waiting. A few whispered that he had ascended beyond even the warp, standing where gods once feared to look. Whatever the truth, his work endured. The balance held. Not eternal, but enough. Enough for the galaxy to breathe again. Inquisitor Halbrecht's successor, the man who had once doubted, then witnessed, then worshipped, stood upon the bridge of the vigilant mercy as it orbited the calm light of the gray star. He watched it pulse, slow and steady, casting no shadow, demanding no worship. "It's beautiful," a young officer whispered. "It's unnatural," muttered another. The Inquisitor folded his hands. "No," he said quietly. "It's both." He turned to the stars beyond. "Remember this moment, all of you. The universe will scream again. It always does. But we were here once. We saw it silent. Across countless worlds, that silence became legend. Farmers on distant agri-worlds looked up at the calm night sky and saw no storms. Astropaths spoke without pain. Children dreamed without nightmares. For one fragile generation, the galaxy forgot fear. And in that peace, progress returned, not as conquest, but as curiosity. Men and women built again, not because they were commanded to, but because they wanted to. The Mechanicus learned to whisper thanks instead of demands. The ecclesiarchy preached not of damnation, but of duty. Even the Emperor's light softened, as if he too paused to listen. Far beyond the reach of any fleet or prayer, within the heart of the gray star, something moved. A pulse. A thought. Not voice, not form, not God. A presence. It watched the universe it had mended, the fragile calm it had earned. And for a moment, it wondered, was this what balance truly meant? Not perfection, not silence, but the choice to begin again. The thought smiled, or perhaps the star itself did, and drifted back into the gray. The universe exhaled. For one heartbeat, all was equal. And then the stars began to sing again. The light of the gray star washed across Terra. It painted the skies in shades of silver and calm. No warp storms raged. No demons howled. Even the Astronomicon, that eternal fire of the Emperor's will, burned softer, steadier, as though breathing in rhythm with the new star above. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Within the Imperial Palace, the silence was unbearable. For 10,000 years, the warp had been a constant noise, the psychic heartbeat of humanity, the chorus of a million prayers echoing toward the Golden Throne. Now that sound had receded, and in its place came something unfamiliar, something the Emperor of mankind had not heard since before his empire was born. In the sanctum of the throne room, the air shimmered with the weight of eternity. The custodes knelt motionless. The Adeptus Mechanicus priests murmured their litanies, their voices hollow against the hum of ancient machines. The throne itself pulsed with dim light, gold fading to gray, divinity softened by fatigue. And upon it sat him, the Emperor, motionless, timeless, watching through eyes that had seen everything and judged everything. Except this. The silence unnerved even him. He reached out, not with voice, but with will. The psychic vastness of his mind stretched across the materium and the immaterium alike, searching for the familiar tides of chaos. For the shrieks of the gods, for the lies of the warp. There was nothing, only the gray star. A steady pulse, a perfect rhythm. The Emperor's golden aura flickered. For the first time in millennia, he felt alone. In that stillness, a voice reached him, faint, distant, but unmistakable. It came not from the warp, nor from Terra, but from somewhere between both, from the balance that now defined existence. It was not a prayer. It was a memory. You burned to preserve the living, Emperor. I burned to preserve life itself. We are both arsonists mistaking the flame for warmth. The Emperor's expression did not change, but his mind stirred. The voice, Thanos, the false titan, the anomaly who had walked through gods and chaos, who had rebuilt balance from ruin, the being who had stood before him and refused to kneel. He remembered their meeting, the defiance, the conviction, the audacity of a creature who spoke to him as equal. And he remembered his judgment. You are consequence. You will be weighed. Now, across the gulf of silence, he felt the weight shift. Across the Imperium, Psychers awoke screaming, not from pain, but from revelation. The Emperor's consciousness rippled through the warp like sunlight through still water. A single whisper carried across every soul attuned to his presence. It was not command, not warning, not wrath, only 4 words. He understood at last. The custodes nearest the throne stirred, their gene-forged discipline faltering for an instant. The tech priests looked up from their consoles, confused. None dared speak, but every psychic soul on Terra heard it, the faint echo of approval. Not for man, not for God, for an idea. The Emperor's light flared once more, burning brighter than it had in centuries. For the first time since the heresy, he was not feeding the Astronomicon to keep humanity alive. He was remembering. He saw the Titan, not as an alien, not as heresy, but as reflection. A being who had walked through death and returned carrying truth. The truth that even creation needs contradiction. That even perfection requires imperfection to remain whole. In the warp, the Chaos Gods recoiled as the Emperor's thought passed over them. They could not stop it, could not twist it. The concept he carried was beyond their appetite. It was understanding, and understanding was poison to them. The warp shivered. For one impossible moment, the light of the golden throne reached even there, piercing the last pockets of madness that had survived the gray star's cleansing. And within that light, faint but undeniable, the echo of the Titan's voice lingered. Balance is not peace. It is choice. The Emperor's radiance dimmed to gold again. He spoke, not aloud, not to his priests, but to the universe itself. Then choice it shall have. On the bridge of the vigilant mercy, orbiting the gray star, a psychic message appeared on every Vox screen simultaneously. No encryption, no code, just 4 words, burned into the glass by light alone. He understood at last. The crew knelt, some in reverence, some in fear, all in all. And as the light faded, the gray star pulsed once more, not cold, not sterile, but warm, alive. In that heartbeat of balance, the Emperor's mind and the Titan's will become one echo, not master and servant, not God and heretic, but 2 halves of the same realization. Creation cannot be saved by domination, nor preserved by annihilation. It survives through equilibrium, through struggle and stillness existing together. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was balanced. Not perfect, not eternal, but understood. The Emperor's lips, long still, moved faintly, the first motion they had made in 10,000 years. He understood. Outside, the light of the gray star continued to shine across the void, silent, patient, enduring. Its pulse was slow and steady, like the heartbeat of a god finally at rest. And somewhere beyond the stars, where balance lives and endings begin, a single voice answered back through eternity. So did you. The galaxy slept. Not in peace. Peace had never been its nature, but in balance. The warp was calm, the gods silent, the Imperium breathing quietly beneath the light of the gray star. For the first time in countless millennia, creation neither screamed nor begged. It simply was. And somewhere beyond the sight of man or God, in the quiet between histories, Thanos walked alone. He drifted through the remnants of a once holy battlefield, the ruins of Cadia. The world that had defied the Eye of Terror for 10,000 years was now only ash and orbiting bones. The planet was gone, but its ghost remained, shattered fragments circling an invisible gravity, locked forever between life and death. He landed upon one of those fragments, its surface jagged and glassy from the fires of the past. The stars reflected on it like old memories, countless and cold. He sat down upon a ridge of stone, armor dulled, cape tattered, eyes calm. There was no throne, no audience, no purpose left unfulfilled. Only the hum of the cosmos, steady as breath. Above him, the gray star pulsed, the quiet child of his final act. Its light reached across the void, soft and even. It neither burned nor blessed. It simply illuminated. Every few seconds, it flared faintly, like the slow heartbeat of the universe remembering itself. Thanos watched it without pride or regret. He felt no triumph, no loss, only understanding. Perfection was never the goal, he murmured. Only completion. The words were carried away by vacuum, but their echo lingered in the hum of the stones. For once, even the void seemed to listen. Images flickered at the edge of his mind, not memories, but reflections. Gamera's laughter in a world now long gone. Halbrecht's final smile as the engine dimmed. The Emperor's golden eyes, softening at last with comprehension. The Silent King's promise, fulfilled in silence. And beyond all of them, the faint whisper of death, not as a lover, not as an ending, but as a presence content to watch him from afar. He closed his eyes and breathed, though he no longer needed air. The breath was ritual now, the rhythm of existence acknowledging itself. Around him, the stars moved with impossible grace. He could sense their balance, the subtle exchange of heat and darkness, gravity and will. He could feel entire systems align and drift apart in the grand pattern that stretched across eternity. He could feel life returning to the void, fragile, foolish, radiant. Each spark, each birth, each death, perfectly imperfect. The equation completed itself without him. And that was enough. The faint hum of the Infinity engines remains still echoed inside his armor, a quiet reminder of what had been built and undone. He raised his hand and looked at it, scarred, heavy, yet steady. The hand that had once erased half of creation now rested upon a cold stone, unmoving. He smiled. Not the smile of conquest, not arrogance, but contentment, the expression of a being who had finally reached the end of motion. Balance, he whispered, not a destination, a rest between steps. He leaned back, eyes half closed, watching the stars burn and die. Every flicker, every death, every spark of rebirth, all part of the same unending rhythm. It was beautiful. A meteor drifted overhead, carving a silent streak of light across the black. He followed it with his eyes until it vanished into the horizon. Then, quietly, he spoke, perhaps to no one, perhaps to everything. I did not win. I did not lose. I simply endured. He looked one last time toward the gray star. Its light flickered as though answering. And for the first time in all his long existence, Thanos laughed, softly, gently, like a man waking from a dream that no longer needed remembering. He closed his eyes. The sound of the cosmos folded into itself, settling into equilibrium. The Titan vanished, not in explosion, nor in rapture, but in dissolution, his body becoming dust and light. The dust scattered through Cadia's ruins, carried by the eternal wind of the void. The light lingered, merging with the glow of the gray star, indistinguishable from it. Somewhere, a dying star was reborn. Somewhere, a new soul took its first breath. Somewhere, the gods whispered again, not in rage, but in awe. And across the infinite, where balance holds and endings fade, the faintest echo remained. I am consequence. I am balance. I am enough. The stars burned on. The universe turned. And in the ruins of Cadia, where the last Titan had smiled, silence endured, not emptiness, but peace.